Today's episode is brought to you by Omnic Noon 2018.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. How's it going with you? So much news this week.
It is going well, and there is a lot of news, and I'm just going to start it off real quick here, is that this is going to be a little bit of a different form episode. We're going to start off and go through all the news real quick, lightning fast, and then we actually stick around afterwards because we've got our 2018 version of Omnic Noon, which is the Omnic Lab High Noon Podcast crossover episode, which are now making a yearly occurrence on the eve of BlizzCon. We sat down with Iplaigames and notrob and talked about BlizzCon and all that stuff. That's going to be at the end of this little segment with us. So we're going to skip some of our normal shenaniganry at the beginning, and we're just going to jump right into the news here.
It's a full hour with the Omnic Lab guys. So
yeah, so we're going to try not to give you a 4-hour
here.
podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you want, but we're going to try not to because we have... well, it's going to try not to. But a little bit of housekeeping is that I wanted to mention that Around the Payload is going to be back tomorrow. If you're listening live, if you're listening in podcast world, it's going to be tonight at 7 Eastern, twitch.tv/HighNoonPodcast. We have Nicole Carpenter from .esports, Pesto Enthusiast, Volamil, and newcomer Fish Sticks. Yes, the Fish Sticks is going to be on, and it's going to be a really great episode right before BlizzCon, and with basically all of the stuff that we're talking about here, and then maybe even more, because it seems like news is trickling in more and more each day. It's going to be a huge episode of Around the Payload. It's us number 25, the quarter century.
That's almost how that works.
Yeah, that is close to maybe almost being somewhat how that works. But let's move right into it.
It's high news.
Got a lot of news here. Shanghai Dragons new roster hype. Oh man, this is gonna be.
Yeah, good luck. I'm super glad I get to do the after you read all the.
Okay, I'm not going with the real names. Sorry, guys. We've got DPS player DM. We've got DPS player D-Ding. We've got Ding. We have Young Jin, also DPS player. We've got Luffy and Coma as support players, and we have Guardian as the off tank. And of course, I'm an idiot and didn't read what teams they're from. So
I can take care of it in the analysis part. So this is, of course, obviously adding to the existing what's left over from the initial Shanghai Dragons roster, that being Fearless.
Dia.
Oh my God, I'm blanking. Dia. I mean, that's exactly the name I was blanking on. And Gagori. So this is going to at least put them to 9 players here. So they've met the requirements. There's no necessity here for them to sign anybody else. So this could be the final roster that we're looking at. Diem and Guardian come from kind of different locations. DM comes from Lucky Future Zenith. He again is the DPS player. Guardian, the off tank, is from Toronto Esports. The rest of these names that we announced, Ding, Young Jin, Luffy, and Coma, I never know. All come from Team Kongdu Panthera. So a big get here for the Shanghai Dragons, as Kongdu is one of the top end Korean contenders teams. They're bringing in a large chunk of that roster, and honestly, I've got to say that might be wholly transformative for this team. I no longer think, listen, I've said it a lot, I don't think, 0-40 is not possible for this roster. So straight out at the gates, already making an improvement here.
Possible or not likely?
Not possible. They don't play 40 games in the season. So we're just avoiding like 0-28 or whatever it was exactly. I think it was 28. But yeah, this is a really strong roster here. The only thing that I'm worried about remains the tank line for this team. I was never completely sold on Fearless. I mean, it was obvious he was an upgrade from, I think it was Roshan handling the main tank duties for them earlier on in Season 1. That was a clear upgrade. I don't know a ton about Guardian. I didn't get to see as much of Toronto esports as I wanted to in the last couple contenders seasons. But to me, the big get here and the reason to be very hopeful for this squad, despite maybe what could be a lackluster tank line, is the coaching staff. They got the coaches from Kongdu Panthera as well. So I think that's going to really give them a chance to really level up these tank players that I'm not sold on, and maybe give them a chance to stand out. Also, it's going to be a little curious to know, is Gaguri or Guardian starting? So there's already a couple of positional battles shaping up here as well. Now they've got 4 DPS players. Listen, we saw Dia pop off a couple of times throughout we're getting word from Thornrain that Guardian was a beast. So I'm willing to take his word for it. I know Toronto did pretty well, but yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be a little bit interesting. I think this is a team that might take some time to develop a little bit. So I don't know that I'd expect them to come out of the gates swinging and being right up there with the best in the league. But there's certainly a lot of potential here, and that's going to be a common theme with me when we talk about these expansion teams and these additions from contenders. Is I think these are potential signings. I don't think they're coming and make a huge immediate impact. We talked ad nauseum season 1 about the change in lifestyle, the adjusting to the new culture, everything like that, the culture shock that these guys are going to go through. That's definitely going to be true for a lot of the expansion players. Luckily, Shanghai has that core group of 3 that can help. I've been in LA for a little while now and can really kind of help everybody get acclimated and get things figured out. So I am low-key hopeful for Shanghai. I think they're going to be able to put together a pretty decent season. With a little bit of a head start on maybe the expansion teams, although when you're adding in a full 6 like this, you're not too far off an expansion team yourself here in the grand scheme of things.
Here's the thing about them that I think is either it's feast or famine. It's either really good for them over an expansion team or really bad for them. Just because they're wearing Shanghai Dragons red colors and have that brand behind them, they have a gigantic chip on their shoulder. So that means a couple of things. They are inherently very motivated to win, because when they come onto this organization, they know it's not like, oh, wait, this team was 0-40? What? You signed me to this? No, they know that. They know that going in. And I have to imagine that these weren't the only players that Shanghai talked to or that Shanghai reached out to. These were the ones that decided, hey, I'm going to go on this team and I'm going to make the difference on this team. So they are just inherently should be motivated to win and motivated to take this team from literally the worst sports organization in history to something else and to push them over that. So I think they have that inherently they have that drive to win. And they have the fan base who, whether, for whatever reason that Shanghai has this fan base, mostly because they lost a lot of games, but they have that around them. So when they get that first win, they're going to go crazy. The fans are going to go crazier than anything else. And they could ride that momentum, even though it's, kind of like false momentum of like, oh, you're a completely, entirely different team. You're just wearing the same colors as that team. You got this amazing historic win for your organization. And they could ride that to potentially more success than an expansion team would, even though they're getting the same first win. Sure. I think there's, hidden factors here that could really boost this team. Now, on the other hand, maybe the Shanghai Dragons is cursed, like actually cursed, and they can never win. But, that's I think
not really even a curse. I want to point out, I don't have faith in the ownership and the management side of this organization. They put together the last roster. Right. They hired the coaches that were like promising spots to young talent in China and things like there's a lot that went wrong with Shanghai.
Controversies. Yeah.
Right, and it wasn't necessarily all on the players. So there's a chance they could drop, just pull the Kongdu Panthera core that they brought in down with them. I don't want to just completely dismiss that. But it's certainly possible, and there's one thing I know in sports: both winning and losing are equally contagious. And if it starts going south for Shanghai, you might need to buckle up. But I think as soon as they win that first match, about 90% of the fans we saw from season 1 will go back to their normal team. And not pay these guys any mind anymore. Right. So we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. So,
but it's still going to be the most talked about thing for that week, at least, and you could still ride that more. They can take it however they want. They can take it and ride it out and really push it. And then if they're really a contender, that's always going to be in the back of their mind. Hey, this team was 0-40 last year, and now look what they did. These guys are superstars. They're going to look better than they normally would.
So the question remains is who's going to be the first team to lose to the Shanghai Dragons?
Ooh.
We don't know. We don't have schedules.
I think it's going to be a
serious.
team that we have deemed as cowards. But certain fast food employees playing for them. But let's move on and talk about a different team. Paris has not announced their branding, but has announced their team. We have soon from the LA Valiant DPS there, the one and only Shadowburn from the Philadelphia Fusion. Last episode we were talking about maybe how he's a full-time streamer, then literally the next day they're like, oh, he's on Paris. Whew.
Hashtag can't get tryouts.
Really, really glad to see that. We have Nico, a DPS from Eagle Gaming. We have Dane, a DPS from the Copenhagen Flames. We have Hype.
That's another one I never know. I say it in every way possible.
It's not Hyped, who was a player for Immortals, who was a former Tempo Storm Hearthstone player and is now, or will soon be, a different game player coming up. But we have Heap from Eagle Gaming, support for Eagle Gaming. We have Cruz, a support for Toronto Esports. We have Ben Best, a tank for Young and Beautiful. Finzi, LA Valiant off tank. And LH Cloudy, the Mayhem Academy tank. That rounds out the Paris expansion team here.
All right, so if you are going to be a very big Paris fan, I'm going to have to ask you to mute the podcast for a couple of minutes because I'm not a big fan of this roster, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I've talked a lot about how I think region locking yourselves is a really bad way to go about building a team, and we're seeing that with Chinese teams that are being rumored to be talking to some Western players and things like that. Like, I just don't see the benefit here of region locking yourself into Europe. With that said, they found some really quality players. Like, listen, I don't think Soon's necessarily a carry DPS player. We talked about that when
can be.
The Valiant leaving, right? But Shadowburn can be. I think he's got a better DPS partner here. We've seen Nico be big. If I remember correctly, that big three-way trade from before Overwatch League, I think Nico was the one that really pushed that trade in favor of Rogue there. So I think there's a big potential for him. All in all, I like the DPS line for this team quite a bit. I don't know a ton about Danye. Now, when we look at the support side of things, I've been a big Cruz fan for quite some time. I think he's definitely a quality support player. I don't know how far your Lucio main support player can really carry your team. And I don't know enough about Hip to really say definitively that I think he can match up. And listen, it's a hard task to ask him to match up with Bedosin, with Jonak, with the top Zenyatta players and the top flex support players in the league. I'm not sure he can do it. I think they needed to go somewhere else. What lineup is Crimzo on? Because I think he could have done it. Like, would it have been so bad to have one player in your team that was from the United States? I have to think probably not. But nonetheless, that's not the direction they went. When we look at the off-tank position, we've got Finzi. He comes from the Valiant. We didn't get to see him on the stage. I don't know when he was. I don't even know when he got to LA, if he did get to LA. But I not sold there, but obviously there's potential there. We've seen Finzi in the past. We know he's pretty good. Ben Best is, in my opinion, going to be the backup main tank for LH Cloudy. Cloudy was a bit of a standout performer for the Mayhem Academy at the tank position. I expect him to keep that role going here and to keep the main tank role here for him. I'm not sure he can listen. It's going to be a very common theme. I don't trust contenders players to just step onto this stage and match up with the best that Overwatch League has to offer. So, good call. Crimzo's Canadian. He's not. That's basically European, guys. That's basically European.
No, it's NA. It's still NA.
I know, but basically, I mean, it's French Canadian. Like, they even speak French. Just sign the man.
I think more people would make a better argument that Canada is basically the U.S. than they're basically Europe.
They wouldn't be Americans. Otherwise, they wouldn't make that argument. Nonetheless, love Canada. You guys are 20 minutes away from me. I'll wave out my window. You might be able to see me if you've got a good telescope. But LH Cloudy, I think, will be the main tank here. Ben Best, I'm really curious to see him level up, mature, and become a better player with his time in the Overwatch League. That's something that, he might be locked into scrims only, or he might be our new Milton. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
That's what I'm most excited to see for season 2 is who
Right,
is the next Milton going to be?
Doesn't play. That's all we care about. But yeah, so we're really interested to see what he's able to do. Maybe he can take the position from Cloudy. I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Overall, I think the Paris team is going to really excite their local fan base, and I think that was probably their goal in building this roster. But I don't necessarily see them slotting in as a playoff team here going into season 2.
So here's the question. So you build your team all European for whatever reason, right? Okay. Here's the problem with doing that. That is a problem pretty much unique to that region and locking yourself to that region specifically. If you build an all-Korean team, you don't get this problem. If you build an all-U.S. team, you don't get this problem. If you build an all-Russian team, you don't get this problem. What language are they going to speak? I'm assuming English, which is okay, which is great. But, so you still have every player on the team not speaking their native language. And, in fact, you get none of the players on the team speaking their native language. So, if you had a mixed Korean and NA roster, some of the team is going to be speaking their native language at least. With this team, even though they're all EU technically, none of them are actually going to be speaking their native language, which is a weird phenomena, I suppose.
It is a little weird. I mean, Cruz is from the UK. He'll be speaking his native language. There's a couple out there for sure. But overall, I think Europeans are generally learning English kind of by default, anyways.
Yeah, I mean they are. It's not. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing, but it's just kind of funny.
It's going to be less of a thing for them, I would think, than mixing Koreans and English speakers together. I think that's a much more difficult challenge. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch this team play. It should be a whole lot of fun. I'm super happy for Paris, that fan base. You guys were incredible at the World Cup. You guys deserve your team. Hopefully you guys can develop these players. And listen, we didn't write down, there's so many announcements. We didn't write down all the coaching staff. One thing I want to say about Paris is I love their coaching staff. They got some big names. They got Saida, they got Kai. There's multiple guys. Those are just the two off the top of my head that I can remember. I think their coaching staff is a big boon for them. If they can bring up the flex support position, the tanks position, and maximize what they can get out of those 4 DPS players. I can't rule out maybe they're in the wild card play-in scenario in that 7 to 12 range. They could certainly kind of overachieve from my expectations and get there. I'm not sticking a fork in them. But honestly, none of these. We're going to be a lot more competitive this year, I think, than we were in season 1, with less of a delineation between good and bad teams. So Paris will probably be on the lower half, but I could see them. Listen, I could be wrong about Hip easily. Cloudy could fit in great and be able to stand, maybe not against the top 1 or, he might not be a top 3 tank, but you don't need a top 3 main tank to win in this league. It sure helps, and it's a great way to build a roster, but there can only be 3 top 3 main tanks in the league.
True.
There's 20 teams.
And 2 of them are usually going to be Fissure. So here's a real question. This team has, I guess, technically Finzi was an Overwatch League player, or was signed to an Overwatch League team. Overwatch League player is a little bit of a strong word, but they only have 2 players that have Overwatch League experience, and it's not the biggest thing. All these other guys are really good and have high level experience, but we kind of talked about in the Discord before, is these Contenders players have not played at the highest stage, and we saw it even just look at World Cup. You look at a team like USA versus Brazil, who Brazil was. You can make a lot of the same arguments that a lot of these teams are going to be making. They were a full team. They were cohesive. They had really great synergy. They were really good in their respective region. They got completely curb stomped by the just vastly more experienced at that top level USA team who played Overwatch League. So even though you've got Soon and Shadowburn, Soon obviously was at the very top of the level, playoff caliber player. Shadowburn didn't play as much in the latter parts of the season, but has shown that he is at the same level as a lot of those players. Just didn't really fit with the team. These other guys, they have not made that yet. So and we've seen even look at Dallas Fuel. They were the greatest esports team greatest esports dynasty in any esport period, and they completely crumbled when it came to Overwatch League. So like we've seen like past success, even past non Overwatch League success not translated into Overwatch League. So
it's going to be interesting, and it's a great point, Blevins. It's something I mentioned in Discord earlier. Listen, we're going to have a higher percentage of contenders crossovers or call-ups that succeed this year for a couple of reasons, and that's one, a lot of Overwatch League level talent, players that were that good just didn't get in because there were only 12 teams in the first season. Also, we're adding in 8 teams, so there's just a larger number of overall contenders call-ups happening this season.
Contenders call-ups probably have to be winning. Like when they play against each other, when they like, if they step up, it's going to have to be them, right?
Right. But I really think people are going to be very surprised at just the out of nowhere, like that one didn't even register. I didn't think he was gonna, I thought he was gonna be a backup and he's gonna be the best player on their team. Right. You're gonna have your Jonax, and then you're gonna have your
Miltons,
Taimus or whatever, players that have such high expectations that fail to meet them. And I think it's going to be really 50-50. There's going to be a couple people expect that really work out and are perfect, and everybody's going to be like, I told you so. But then there's going to be just as many that just are everybody's wild about and isn't going to work. It's just going to fall apart. And it's going to be a lot of fun to figure out and watch and talk about. So.
And that seems like a perfect segue into our next team here, the Atlanta Reign, who we have, maybe we won't deem them as cowards for playing this player, but because I don't know. He's kind of like the opposite of
role here, though. This is we've gotten more shout outs, tweets, comments, Discord messages about this player announcement than any other ones. So Blevins hit us with it. Be the first one to not lose 5 points for saying.
Speaking of players who people are going to be hyped up about and may not work out, or maybe he will, maybe he'll be great. It is, of course, the one and only Defran, DPS player from none other than McDonald's. The biggest signing for the Atlanta Reign, but the rest of the team is Erster, DPS player from Lucky Future Zenith, Nalair. We're going with Nalair.
Let's go with Nalair.
DPS player from Last Night's Leftovers. Man, that really just threw me off.
That was the easy part to say.
I know. Daco from the off tank from Element Mystic, Gator main tank from Goats, Pakpo main tank from Element Mystic, Kodak flex support for Six Snakes. I don't know how you say that, and then Masa the main support for Giganti.
We know how to say that one.
I know how to say that one
multiple times by Fraggy.
Yes, we've been taught for that one.
Shout outs to Fraggy. We would sound like such idiots without your lessons.
True.
So listen, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. I haven't been shy when the conversation and the Defran rule originally came to High Noon Productions. I was very adamant that I didn't think Defran was really an exceptional talent. I think he's got really strong mechanical aim. I think he can play a lot of aim-based hit scan heroes very well. I don't know that he, especially after all this time off, right? He's been away for so long. He has to have fallen off some. We've seen him try other games. We know because we were trying those games too.
And he was good at that game, for what it's worth.
He was good at that game, but he wasn't in the top tier of players. Maybe individually, but like his teams, his duo partners, they never finished well in the esports tournaments they did there. I'm just saying,
but
it
a
takes
different
more than raw mechanical
point-losing player
skill.
was so.
It takes it takes a lot more than mechanical skill in Overwatch. I think, especially compared to Realm Royale, which is the game we're referring to, to really stand out. And I think it's going to take Defran some time to really settle in, get himself back into just peak mechanical performance, as well as get himself back into that team mindset. Everything that you kind of lose when you step away from a team for a while is going to take him a minute to get it back. I don't know how long it's going to take him, but personally, I don't even see him starting for this team, and I think he said something to a similar effect, although how much can you really take anything out of Defran's mouth at face value? The man that loves to meme. So yeah, it sounds like Nalar is going to be the DPS player there in that role, especially in maybe specifically the Widowmaker role. I think is where DeFran comment, but I didn't see the comments myself. I just heard people talking about it. And then we look. Listen again. The real challenge here for expansion teams this year was finding tank players. I think it was going to be a bit of a rough go. I do think Atlanta did a better job than most. I think Pakpo has a decent chance to be pretty good here. He's at least, I don't know that I like the position he's in. He's got his off-tank counterpart Dako with him, or Dako. There's so many of these I forget when you're not hearing the names regularly. You forget exactly what the pronunciations are. But we're not known for getting pronunciations correctly.
Sure aren't.
We have no history of doing so, so you shouldn't be surprised we're getting them wrong anyways. Yeah, and then listen, Gator at main tank, I don't see that being a high-impact player here. I think they're going to go with Pakpo and try to develop Gator and maybe calm down some of his toxicity that he learned in GOATS a little bit. The flex support, Kodak, I don't know much about this guy, but I don't. Again, this is another situation where how is he supposed to just stand toe-to-toe with Jonak and throw Zenyatta orbs across the map with higher accuracy? And it's going to be tough. Listen, Brad is a solid coach, but I think this roster is, for me personally, a little too underwhelming to really jump up. And I've got them kind of low-key pegged to be outside of even the play-in situation. I think they're going to have a really tough time stacking wins throughout the course of the season, especially when you consider the division they're in, and if it's even close to as lopsided as it was through stage 1 through 3. I mean, we just know how good London is, New York is, Philadelphia is here, Houston, if you're buying into the Boston even too, if you're buying into their kind of revamp, although they might, I think, take a sharp turn in the opposite direction.
Maybe.
Judging off
also potential Toronto as well. Toronto, who knows?
Toronto will be in the division, but we'll get to them soon. And so I think they're going to have a tough time, but I also think this is a solid future roster, right? Like, I think these are some players that you can improve, make better, and maybe we see a San Francisco Shock-esque kind of climb for them. Now, they're not going to like unlock with additional players, at least to my knowledge.
Upgrade. They don't get to level up.
Right. They don't just add, 2 players that turn 18 throughout the season that I know of, but I do think they get to take a lot of guys that maybe are really raw mechanically and try to develop them into a cohesive team. And this can easily be a situation where the sum of the parts, or the whole, is greater than the sum of the parts. There we go. And that's kind of what you're pinning your hopes on if you're an Atlanta Reign fan. Hopefully you guys are better than your branding, because boy, I don't like that name.
I mean, what's wrong with Atlanta Reign? I mean, Pokemon Go Team Valor did it so well.
I don't get that reference personally, but
you played Pokemon Go. It's a red.
I know, but I don't.
It's the red team.
Oh, in my head, I just heard like the yellow team. What was the name of the yellow team?
I don't know. They're the worst team. Instinct, yeah. Instinct.
That's what I thought we were talking about. I was like, isn't that a terrible one? But yeah,
red is also a terrible one.
I don't remember what team I was. So we don't need to go down this rabbit hole where I pretend like I care. But yeah, to me, so far, at least of the expansion teams, the Atlanta Rangers is the name that misses me. It's weird. Do you like the Reigns? Are you the Reigns, or you're just the Reign? Reign isn't an object. It's something kings do. But you signed kind of a lackluster roster. So what are you reigning over? Are you going to be reigning over the basement dwellers?
No, they bless the rains down in Africa. Nope, not going down that meme.
There's plenty of memes, and we'll come up with them as the season progresses. But yeah, I don't know. It's not for me. I like the colors. I'll say that. I think the black and red color scheme is pretty good. I love that they match their NFL franchise, but the name is.
They did. They're not even the best red expansion team in Overwatch League. So yikes. Okay, so here's the looming question: can and will DeFran make it in Overwatch League in the same sense that XQC did not.
Is he going to XQC
Is
out?
he going to
No,
explode?
I called the XQC implosion. I'm not going to call this one. I do think it ends that way. That's the only way I see Defran exiting the Overwatch League, and that is amidst a colossal implosion, and just absolutely blowing up. But it's not going to be like right away. With XQC, it was like, no, this guy's not going to be able to shut up for 5 minutes. He's going to put his foot in his mouth, and he's going to be out before the end of stage 1, sort of thing. And that's not what this is. Defran's going to probably be good for a year, 2 years, 3 years even. But at some point,
right,
he's going to really
flips the
miss
switch.
flipping burgers.
Yeah.
And he's going to want to go back to McDonald's. And he's just going to do something unspeakable that's going to get him kicked out.
You know what?
That's, to me, the way it's going. But also, these guys, he will get older in that time frame, right? So maybe he calms down. Maybe he realizes, hey, I can just walk into my boss's office and go, man, I can't do this anymore. I gotta get out of here. You could just quit your job.
Yeah. I mean, it almost from an outsider's viewpoint looking in, the difference between XQC and Defran from that level seems like XQC, it almost seems uncontrollable from him. Like, it almost seems like he is doing things and acts the way that he does on a compulsion level. Whereas Defran, it's more like he's actively trying to troll and be like a troll. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, Defran is funny. He's not. To me, he's not destructive until he's imploding.
And he's trying to be.
Right, and that's his goal, right? So he's not like accidentally toxic. And I think he's going to be a fun character. I'm legit. I mean, everybody thinks we hate them because of the Defran rule, and that's fine. It was fun.
We didn't hate them. We hate the fact that everyone would ask us every week about them, and they're not in Overwatch League.
Yeah, we didn't hate Defran ever. We only hated Reddit. And Reddit spawned the questions and everything. So I think Defran's going to be a blast to watch. I hope we get to see him on the stage. I hope we get to see him often. I would prefer he starts for this team because I just think it would be the most fun, and I'm indifferent to them. But at the end of the day, I have a hard time seeing this roster just kind of pulling off a playoff run or something like that.
So you want
name's bad.
So you're saying you want them to make it rain? Okay, done for that. Let's move on here to San Francisco Shock. Violet or Vile 2T, I'm guessing that's Violet or Vile 2T. I don't know. Has joined the San Francisco Shock, flex support player from O2 Ardiant. Anything about them? Is he going to play? Where does he fit on this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a real chance to overtake the job from Sleepy. Maybe not initially straight out of the gate, but I think there's a very real chance that happens. Obviously, Krusty being the head coach over there, he speaks Korean. I think this might have been his signing. Sleepy was a solid performer, but I think that just might increase his trade value. Maybe they move him around. It's really tough to say because Sleepy did so well, but from my understanding and from what I saw, Violet was one of these standout flex support players from Korean contenders, even though O2 Ardiant didn't really perform phenomenally, but there's a lot of people really hyped about him. I think he's got a real chance to take over the job. And it's at the end of the day, no matter who gets the starting job, the San Francisco Shock will be better because of this competition. These two pushing each other, helping each other grow in the same room, in the same scrims, will result in the best possible flex support that they could have possibly fielded in Season 2 being on the stage for them. So overall, I'm pretty excited about this one for San Francisco.
Yeah, I feel like, I guess I get the having the competition and the internal like growth between the players, but like I don't know, Sleepy seemed like such a good option and like was such a like, pardon the pun, but a sleeper from last season that like he seems like he's either like let's put in the time and give him more of an opportunity, or let's trade him and get something because he has a non-zero amount of value because he was a really good flex player or flex support. So it seems kind of weird that they would have both, but I'm sure they have more of a plan there. And San Francisco, they, even though like they had their two players that unlocked halfway through the season, but also they did some other acquisitions mid-season. So maybe that's something that they're setting up for. They're not doing their initial trades and whatnot now. They're going to do them in mid-season. So I don't know. Moving on here, we've got LA Gladiators who have signed Roar and Decay, tank and DPS players respectively from Kongdu Panthera. Notably, I believe Decay was the player that was like there was notably reportedly a huge bidding war over.
Yeah, they were talking about his salary being up in the excess of like 300,000 or something along those lines, which to me is really interesting that he landed here and that they wanted him so bad, because I thought the DPS core of this team was really a boon for them.
Yeah.
I love the way and the look of the current Gladiators roster. They needed the main tank signing, right?
Yeah.
Like I really Roar, I think, is one of the better tank options that was available for pickup. So good on them for securing him. Decay, I'm fascinated to know how they're going to use him, and I hope they don't bench anybody permanently or anything like that. But when we look at Decay, they list the signature heroes as Tracer, Widowmaker, Genji, and Zarya's there as well. But Tracer and Widowmaker, that sounds to me personally like Surefour's job. And I thought we saw this team look significantly better. Well, they used to rotate Asher in and things like that, and I really thought that the team looked noticeably at their best when Surefour was in there. I don't want to see him out permanently, but I do think there's a lot to be said for the way they handled their DPS initially. Just maybe Asher wasn't good enough, and now they can really let Surefour focus on maybe his Widowmaker, and then Decay comes in and just handles the Tracer and the somber roles or something along those lines. Maybe it becomes a matter of divvying up the heroes, and I think that's how I would guess things work out for the LA Gladiators. Either way, they're officially my number 3 team now, so I still do root for them quite a bit, and I'm really excited for these signings. I think Roar was absolutely necessary. I think Decay really increases their potential. It's just a matter of, do they use him in a way that actually makes them better, because he's shown in his times at Kongdu. These could have been, at least in my opinion, these might be the top 2 players to come out of the Kongdu Panthera roster, and they're not going with the bulk of the rest of the roster that went to Shanghai. So good recruiting there from the Gladiators to kind of break up what was probably meant to be the Shanghai Dream Team.
Yeah, for sure. Notably here, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we were talking about it in chat earlier because there's a lot of rumors and whispers going around right now. No players from the academy team here for LA. So
yeah, Panker was theoretically, they had first rights to sign him, and we didn't see them do that. They went with Roar instead. So hey, they would know best, right? They had kind of control over and got to watch Panker play and see how he operates, and decided to go in other directions. So maybe that tells us all we needed to know. I don't think I've heard Panker rumored anywhere either. So I wonder if I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that we had talked with Kyle about as being a top potential pick. But speaking of top potential picks here, we move on to NYXL, and Flower. Specifically, Flower has been signed officially to NYXL in the least surprising signing of this offseason. No longer Nanohana is now Flower, a.k.a. Yes Hana, as I have called him. And Nuggets.
I got you, listeners. I'll boo them for you.
No, hold on. I have to do this, so I'll give myself a shame bell. And Nuggets. Let's just keep the shame bells going.
Share that shame bell with
I was going to say, Nugget has become the huge air quotes here for the podcast listeners, first GM ever for NYXL. Let's just throw some more shame bells there. Apparently Bare Hands wasn't good enough, and before the Reddit sleuths here come, I know his official title wasn't GM, but he was the GM. Come on.
It was Director of Player Personnel.
Yeah.
I don't think Mr. Wilpon knew enough to say, let's go get Luxury Watch Blue. We all know who scouted and signed this team, and it just seems weird to me to give the title, make it a different title, and pretend like it's the first one ever. Bare Hands, we didn't forget you. We'll never forget you here on the High Noon
Bare Hands
podcast.
we trust.
We got your back.
Yeah, and like, okay, I get, okay, if you didn't want to give Bare Hands the first GM title, that's fine. And if you wanted to give Nugget the GM title, that's also fine. But like, why did you make a big deal of him being the first one?
Yeah.
That like, why did you go out of
I
your
don't even
way?
know that they made a big deal out of it. I just read
They made
it and it
enough of a
bothered me.
deal.
Right.
They made enough of a deal to get a second round of shame.
Enough of a deal that we noticed, and I didn't like it.
Didn't like it at all. But let's turn to things that at least I do like. I don't know. I still don't know your opinions here.
Real quick on Flower,
Sure.
there was a lot of talk and speculation about he underperformed in contenders with XL2. He kind of sat on their bench for a good amount of time. I believe his spot on XL2 was just stay warm
Ceremonial.
for the big leagues. Stay warm for the big leagues.
Yeah.
We'll throw you in on occasion just to build some hype in a matchup we think we're going to win anyways.
Yeah.
But don't stress yourself. Just be ready to go when we call you up.
Yeah.
When we talked to Bare Hands before season 1, after he put together the NYXL roster, he said outright, "Yeah, we're definitely Flower is going to be
Flowers in the org.
team.
Yeah. Flower,
He's here. We just aren't allowed to sign him to the main roster right now. There was never any question. The players wanted him. The coaches wanted him. The organization wanted him. Everything. This was always going to happen. And I personally don't think he was really even scrimming with XL2. I think it was really for show that he was on that roster. So yes, I think, and I expect him to be really good. I expect him to be high impact. The question is he the new big boss? Who's the big boss on NYXL now? Who's the bench reliever? It's going to be very curious to see.
I know.
But
I don't want to see any less Pine, unless it's Spider Pine, in which case I'd never want to see that again.
The NYXL decisively have 4 quality Widowmaker players now, so make of that information what you will.
They're an embarrassment of riches. So yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing in here is like they haven't shipped any of their DPS players. Where is everyone gonna, like, how much time is everyone gonna give? It's like, is it gonna be like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, how much SBB do we see? I'm assuming I assume in all worlds and all realities and all metas, we're going to see Libero just because he is the wild card. He plays whatever you need him to. But besides Libero, like, who is the second DPS at any given time? Is it just going to always be rotating? Is Pine going to be like literally like a 2-map specialist? Is Flower going to be a mainstay? I don't know. Is it going to depend on the meta? No idea. So I don't know. I think that's the only thing that makes me a little bit worried is that we might see less Pine, which I don't want to see. I want to see a consistent or greater amount of Pine. But Flower is going to be exciting too. I don't know if he's going to be the same level of excitement as Pine, but we'll see. But moving on,
he brings what he brought to the World Cup last year, he'll be up there.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that was a long time ago, and
it was.
Didn't see any of that in contenders. And again, I think I tend to agree with you. With it was like they had his spot in the clubhouse nice and polished, and he had to sit. He had to be in the minors while he before he could go up. So I don't know. We'll see. Moving on here, last bit we're going to talk about is the announcement of the branding and the first 2 players for the Toronto Defiant, which I'm wearing the brand new hat for because I am a cool person. We've got Neko, of course, the support from the Boston Uprising, and Envy, Flex Tank from LA Valiant as the first 2 players. And actually, we got 2 more earlier today as well. We got Ivy and Stellar, the DPS duo from O2 Ardiant.
Yeah. To me, Neko and Envy, they both performed very well in their time in Overwatch League. I'm very excited. I'm going to be rooting for this Toronto team. There's no Canadian branding in the team name or anything like that.
True.
The roster's shaping up pretty well. I'm a little. I like that they brought in a DPS tandem, like a duo from a team, to kind of have some existing synergy there, especially in dive. You really want your DPS players to be on the same page. You need to get them on the same page with your main tanks and your off tanks as well, but that'll come with time. They've got a couple pieces that have been around the league, can help everybody adapt, help everybody get going. And yeah, so I need to see the rest of it, right? Obviously, to me, the main tank is the position that matters most.
Yep.
when you're kind of starting from scratch, that's where I would want to begin.
Could be Panker.
It could be. We don't know.
It's true. We just talked about it. Oh, now I'm excited.
But yeah, listen, this team is another one of those potential rosters for me. Mm-hmm. They're probably going to start a little bit on the slower side, and that's okay. I think that's a fair expectation to have of academy teams. But we've seen Neko perform at a really high level on the flex support position. I feel confident in the peeling that Envy can bring to the team, even if he's not maybe the biggest fragger from the off-tank position. You can kind of play that more passive style to success for sure. And then there's a lot of potential in Ivy and Stellar for sure. Yep. I don't listen. We mentioned it a lot, but we don't watch a ton of the Korean contenders and things like that. I don't know what went wrong for O2 Ardent in the last season, but they kind of finished in the 5 to 8 range, somewhere in there. I think it was in that bracket.
Still respectable.
A bit of an early exit, but yeah, listen, these guys are clearly going to be good. It's a matter of what can the coaching staff do, and we know they've got Bishop, so that to me is the most encouraging thing. Is we saw London at their best in the grand finals, and then before that, their best performance was in stage 1 when their head coach was Bishop. So I think he knows how to use a roster. I think he knows how to get the most out of a roster, and if he can get a roster that he can maximize, I think they've got a chance to maybe break into that play-in situation. But it's going to take a late push, I think, because I do expect them to have a slow start. But so far with the 4 we have, it's a good beginning.
Yeah, and the kind of the interesting thing, I guess,
also vastly superior branding than the Atlanta. Just throwing it out.
Yeah, Atlanta Reign isn't even the best red expansion team. It went without saying that they weren't the best red team, not even the best red expansion team for this season. Yikes. But yeah. So, and one note I would like to bring up for those of you who were in the chat while the branding video was going off, and I was there at the branding party. So many people asked for leaks. So many people asked me to leak the branding because I knew it beforehand, and no one believed me. And let me tell you, we technically gave you enough clues that you could have figured it out. I literally said the name of the team. No one knew. We have the proof. We
told you guys at least an hour before it was announced what the brand was going to be, and it just whooshed over everybody's head.
It was so cleverly woven into conversation that no one noticed.
And by cleverly, he means Blevins used the word
defiant
in an awkward way.
Yeah.
To me, I knew the brand was super obvious. And I'm like, well, we just gave it up. Like, they all know now. And then everybody's just like, ignored it, didn't see it. They thought they were going to be called like the Sliders or something like that.
I would like to note and give shout outs to Pesto Enthusiast, who correctly came up with the best alternative name, which was the Turan Totally Spies. But actually, I don't know if it was a fake post after the fact, but I didn't look into it at all. But apparently someone, for those of you who didn't realize, someone made a fake leak of the branding the day before it was going to be revealed, and they made it was like the Venom, or it was called the Toronto Venom, and they made like in hindsight a pretty clearly fake picture. But apparently someone commented on that day and said this defiantly is not the branding. Now, I don't know if that picture that showed that was it was fake or doctored or whatever, but it came from like a day before, so I don't know. Maybe someone leaked it beforehand. But yeah, no, you guys asked me to leak it. I technically did. I just did it with a little more grace, and by grace I mean tomfoolery than some of the other leaks we've been getting lately. That's all I'll say about that. But
I did really enjoy getting our Discord all worked.
Oh man, it was great because people so much fun. And here's the funny thing: we've held I'm not going to say a lot of integrity, but we've held a certain amount of integrity when it comes to leaks and reporting on leaks for a very long time. And the second that we have the chance, people immediately want us to throw that in the trash. I love it. But we held true, kind of. I if people would have figured it out off of that, I wouldn't even feel bad because,
If you'd have been clever enough to puzzle it out, you would have deserved it.
I didn't give it away completely. I said it explicitly, but I didn't give it away necessarily completely. But
all right, Blevins. Well, I think that wraps us up.
That
Can
does
I go
wrap
watch
us
my
up.
Football team get humiliated.
That's going to be it
TV
for our portion, guys. Stay tuned here. Listen to Omnic Noon 2018. It's coming up in just a minute. Any last words before we kick it over to past us?
No, just make sure you reach out to us if you're going to BlizzCon. Make sure you stop by, say hello, and we will do our best to meet anybody we can. And yeah, we'll see you guys afterwards. Expect a week off because we will be exhausted, sick, and on airplanes next Monday.
Yeah. Yes. Last thing, Con Before the Storm, Thursday, 10 p.m. California time is when the Overwatch panel is, and then we're going to be hanging out in the Hilton after that. So check us out, and we will pass it over to Past Us and Past Omnic Lab for Omnic Noon 2018.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab 124. Omnic Noon 2018 has returned. What's up, guys?
Woo! Not too much. How's it going?
My name's Rob, coming in from Japan. It's an early 10:30 a.m. session, but the rising sun never sleeps. And joining me is your Georgia Peach and mine, Andres Gomez. What's up, Andres?
You know, I don't know about the nickname Georgia Peach sticking a little bit. I feel like we've used that a couple of
I'd get
episodes.
used to it. I just heard it, and I'm going to use
I've
it.
never said it before, but it's certainly going to be the
I've never had a
entire
Georgia Peach
weekend.
before you, Andres. Winky face.
I guess I'll take it for now.
Georgia peach flavored Coke.
We have the peach. We have Andres' peach flavored Coke Death Blow? Question mark.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Not too much. So I read, just to be clear, we're not doing Halloween costumes this time around because I still have mine from before.
No, we're
Yeah, I
not
feel
doing
like
a
I
Batman
came
theme.
unprepared, and now that you have your Roadhog thing out.
I mean, I'm cosplaying as a Contenders team from last year. Okay, no.
Good try,
Fine.
though.
I'll leave it alone. It's really
All right, let's
uncomfortable
introduce
to
the
wear
corn
anyways.
dog, Blevins. Blevins is here. What's up, dude?
What up?
Got our New Yorkers coming in hot from High Noons Productions. However you say it these days. You guys have a whole network. You want to talk to people, just kind of get a refresher who you guys are real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Blevins.
Yeah, we're originally from High Noon Podcast, but we've got, I don't know, what, 4 shows, 5 shows, 2
least
shows,
three.
At least 3. High Noon Podcast, Around the Payload, Foul Play, that we do, and we've also got Blackwatch Report that Thorn and Kyle do, and then sometimes we've got other shows too, but people come and go. Well, people go on break and get jobs at
Or
Google
get
and
hired
stuff.
by Google.
Yeah.
Thanks, Taco.
Freaking Google.
Taco.
Always just stealing
Can
all
you
the
think about how that
podcasters.
would impact our podcast network, Taco? Come on now.
Google just really likes those refried beans, man. Just can't help it.
Yes.
So, for those of you unengaged, Foul Play and is like a fantasy centric Overwatch League podcast. High Noon proper, I guess you could say, instead of High Noon Podcast now, is more of the generic everything owl that you could ever want. And
We like to call it
Overwatch,
the flagship show.
the flagship.
Yes.
Yep, for you Sea of Thieves fans out there. And also they have the Blackwatch Report is just a contenders centric show, yeah?
Tier
the
2.
affiliate one.
Yep.
Path
Tier
to Pro.
2. Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't cover Overwatch Open Division because that is just a hot mess to try to cover.
No,
from,
they do. It's the whole Path to Pro.
Yeah,
Oh
they
wow!
do a
Okay,
little
so that's
bit,
tier 2 and tier 3 then.
NA Contenders is the
Yeah.
primary focus of Blackwatch
Okay.
Report, but they do reach out and
trickles
like they have an episode coming up on Chinese contenders. They kind of like
Gotcha.
take breaks and go into the other scenes, but for the most part, I think they stay NA like we did when it was a broader, harder to
Yeah.
cover esports scene. You know, you don't want
Right.
to be watching VODs of things that happened at
Sure.
3 a.m. on Tuesdays.
Sure. Yeah, and then you have the Around the Payload, which is the immensely popular one that has kind of popped up out of the Around the Horn, copycat show.
I don't know anything about this Around the Horn you're talking about.
Legally very different. Not Rob.
I want you guys to have legal fees. Then you have some real fun. All right. Well, we have a few announcements to run through here, guys. We got the game night from the 26th is concluded. There was a few people that were able to show. This is not one of our larger shows. I believe it's probably because a lot of people are preparing festivities for Halloween parties this time of year, and they're pretty big in stateside. As well as we had quite a few people just say that they had to work this time around, unfortunately. So we only had 2 lobbies going. Yeah, Andres wasn't able to be there, but actually Totem was there, Icy was there, and myself was there. So we had 3 of our podcasters there, and then a lot of other people had scrims going on that night, so they came in the late hours. But it was good. We had a bunch of our patrons, had some friends that kind of make the rounds, as you guys are probably aware. They go to all of the podcast discords to play game nights. But it was a good idea. For those of you that came, we enjoyed a lot of smaller lobbies, so lots and lots and lots of games, which is really good. We also have a sponsor again. Ben, aka I Need Peeling from Top Score Solutions, is back to let you guys know about offering free business consultations within esports. So coaches, teams, app and services, boosting subscribers, all that jazz. You guys can find them at Top Score Esports on Twitter or topscoresolutions.com. Omnic Meta has no new relative updates, probably because Switch is also preparing for BlizzCon to go crash our parties and hang out with us. So you guys can see him there if you're at BlizzCon. And along the same lines, we have Calm Before the Storm, Overwatch panel. Our panel starts at 10 p.m., it goes to 11 p.m. in the Hilton on the 4th floor. 3 of the panelists are here on the show today, and one of the hecklers will be there in Deathblow.
I'd like to let it be known I will also still be a heckler from the panel stage.
Yeah, truth. I don't know why they invited you, but they did. So
I have no idea how I got invited.
I didn't even fight Blevins for the spot on the panel, and it was a very calculated move. We have a plan.
Yeah,
we don't have a plan.
They were like, we need some comedic relief, and Rob's really bad at it, so let's just get Blevins in there and make sure that Deathblow can be invited at least in the crowd, because then it'll make it interesting.
Make sure a microphone can pick him up on accident.
I think what I'm going to do is pick up an interview mic to go hand around and just give it to you. And that'll be the show.
I'll be our Harsha from Tip of the Hat. Back to you guys on the panel.
Out there in the crowd, how's it looking in the weather? All right,
Still inside. Back to you.
We also have Icy Sorrow from Enter the Iris and Blazing Bob from many reports. So we got Watchpoint, Owl Recap, and Prepare to Attack. Totemly Drunk of Heroes Never Die and Overwatch Recall and Iplaigames and Overwatch League Network. I almost forgot that one. And then Andres is also repping the Owl Recap and Omnic Lab.
For percent.
And then I will be there repping this show and moderating. So if you guys want to be there, that would be great. We're at the latest night, so if you have a late flight, you could probably still catch us, which is great. Come to the thing and hang out. I will actually be bringing Japanese candy, and you are welcome to have some. I brought 3 bags, so you can have some. And then the panelists will have a special omiyage or, I guess, traveling gift that I'll be giving to them, and I got some extras for Flagship Associates, aka Deathblow, and Icy's boyfriend.
It's gonna be a really, really fun time. I really encourage, if you guys are gonna be at the convention and you're gonna be there on Thursday night, just to stop by. I know a lot of our friends, some of our listeners, patrons are already gonna be there. We're gonna be doing the panel and then hanging out outside in the lobby in the Hilton. So just a great place to make friends and get to know us if you haven't had a chance. And if you get to know us before, come and hang out again. Let's be friends.
Yeah, for sure.
The Hilton is the place to be for sure.
Blevins, Deathblow, what do you guys want to say about where they can find you? I mean, we're probably just going to do Hilton, right? Just around the area. If you guys want to find us, we'll be there. Run around.
For Thursday, definitely Hilton. And then everything else is no holds barred. There's no plan. I have specifically made no plans whatsoever.
It's too hard to plan.
So it's too hard. There's a trillion things to do. There's already too much stuff to do in the weekend, so I don't make plans unless it's something very specific. But no plans. Overwatch finals of I want to see USA crush South Korea. That's all.
Yep.
That's
the only thing I definitely am going to.
Yeah, we'll be screaming in the stands during that match. You can count on that. If you wanna find
And
us.
I'll definitely not be at the musical, any of the music things.
There's too
That
many
is
other fun
100%
things that you
sure.
can do when the concerts are going on that it's really hard to commit to doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it being my first BlizzCon, I'm not making I'm going in with I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going. I'm just going and going to enjoy it. It's like a bucket list item thing that I've always wanted to do. So I'm really happy to get a chance to do it. And yeah, so I'm just kind of keeping everything wide open. And if you see us though, by all means, we would love to talk to you. So flag us down. We'll say
It's
hello.
very easy to spot us too, especially when Blevins and Deathblow are near us, because you can see them over the crowd at any given point.
Yes.
These guys are huge.
And probably hear us too.
If you see somebody that looks like an NFL lineman, just yell Deathblow. I'm sure it will be me throwing around.
Yes, if you see Reinhardt, but they're not wearing any gear, that's probably Deathblow. But not actually Reinhardt, the voice of Reinhardt, because he'll also probably be there.
Darren DePaul will be there alongside
Yes.
Scott Mercer for the community event, including the cosplay event and all of that
Nice.
jazz on the very first day, which is in the evening. So after all the festivities are over, there's typically at least 2 to 3 rounds, somewhere in that range, of all of the esports or video game franchises having some form of event, and there's no new announcements in the evening. And then they'll have one of the venues will be taken over by the community night near the Mythic stage. So basically there is something for everyone, and then there's more. So you basically have to choose whatever the heck that's going on, where are your friends and what are they doing, and if you're going to join them or
Yeah.
not.
I remember even
So,
for
it's hard.
opening
It's
ceremony
tough.
last year, they had it in 3 different locations. I ended up
Yeah.
viewing it in the Overwatch arena, which
Yep.
was cool because Jeff
We got on
Kaplan
the
got to come
promo.
out. Yeah, Darren the Ball was there too. So I don't know.
Yep.
Are they doing the Overwatch arena this year again, or is there a different location?
Yeah, it's Overwatch Arena again.
It's in all the locations again. That was such a
the
success.
announcement-
They're doing it again.
Yeah, what they did last time, if you guys were not there or didn't have the virtual ticket, what they did is they started on the Mythic stage, and then for every major game franchise announcement outside of Warcraft, I believe, I'm not sure, but I think they did the classic reveal from the Warcraft stage, and then they did the Warcraft Battle for Azeroth preview on the main Mythic stage. I think that's what they did. And then every game franchise big release, they just like passed the mic and went over to a different arena to do the announcement. So everyone was involved, including the Hearthstone stage, which was super cool.
Yeah, it was a great way to do it because then everyone who was into their game got to see the live events for that game, but it happened all simultaneously at the same time. You don't have to like shuffle and go to a different place to see the other thing. I thought it was really cool.
And you can actually get seats, which is actually really tough to get for opening ceremony when it's just in the main stage. You have
Yeah.
to literally wait in line for 3 hours and then sprint when they actually open the lineup to try to get a seat. And if you try to get a seat for more than like 1 or 2, even 2 people is tough to get.
Even in the
seats
media
there.
section, you guys, it's actually quite packed in that area because Andres and I were just like, we're not even going to try. So we just went with Blevins in the main area. We went through and waited for him and saved him a seat, and he just was able to sit with us in the media section because it was that empty in the other areas. So
Yep.
It worked out pretty well going to the Overwatch stage. That's probably what we'll end up doing this year, is my guess.
we might do it again.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure like if I'm gonna be there next year. So I'm kind of curious to see if we want to just like because all 4 of us have media badges, so we might just go through the media entrance and try to get there in the media section of the main stage. That would be pretty cool. But just
That would
because
be
I've never done it before, so I don't know. But yeah, we'll see.
It is
we're
a
not
different
gonna make any
experience,
promises
but-
yet. Yeah.
It's nice to hear that nice packed crowd because it wasn't super packed at the Overwatch arena, but it is
But the
absolutely.
Overwatch
mobbed and
announcements were freaking loud. So that's
Yeah.
one big plus. Is everyone in the arena that is for that game, they're all excited for that game's announcement, which is really cool.
Now,
Conceptually.
and I know that you guys don't want to do too much speculation, but we know that this year we're going to get some announcements of some sort. We know for a fact that we're not getting a map. Jeff Kaplan already came out and was like, no map, guys, which honestly, I'm not really that bummed about. The
Meh.
map
Yeah,
can wait.
it's fine.
But we know for a fact that there's probably going to be, or not for a fact, but more than likely, new hero. It's one of the big ones that they usually
Not
say for
BlizzCon without a new
BlizzCon.
hero.
And we're waiting for the third release of a hero this year, right? We've gotten 2 so far. If they continue with the schedule, we should definitely be getting one towards the end of the year. do we want to do any wild guesses? I know Deathblow has some secret intel that he's been gathering from the dark web.
Completely unfounded, but I'll save it and give kind of my regular opinion. Remind me, who was right before Wrecking Ball?
Before Wrecking
Doomfist.
Ball, Doomfist, I believe. No.
Was it
I don't think it was
No, no,
Doomfist. Was it Moira? Was Moira after Doomfist?
Brigitte.
Moira is before.
Brigitte,
Yeah, you're totally right. Okay.
Brigitte, that's right.
Brig into Doomfist.
How
Okay,
could
so
we
we've
forget
had.
No,
her?
Brig into Wrecking.
Right.
Wrecking
Yeah,
Ball.
she haunts our dreams.
Doomfist was like 500 years ago.
Yeah, it was
Doomfist was the
Doomfist,
original
Brig, and
starting
then-
character.
Yeah.
Doomfist was
So-
actually the very first Overwatch character. That's how wrong you guys were.
He was inside the payload the whole time.
He was from Titan, actually.
Okay.
Well,
He was in Warcraft
nobody
1.
knows what that is. But
He was the fourth boss Viking. Okay, I'm done.
Titan's a dead game, Blevins. Get it together. Okay, so
Actually, dead game.
right. Yeah, so the last two have been support and then tank, so I think it stands to reason we're likely to get a DPS hero. Other than that, I don't really have too many thoughts other than the kind of name that I saw that is completely unfounded. But yeah, so I think it's probably going to be DPS. Personally, I think the game needs a tank more than it needs anything else at the moment, so I won't be upset at all if we end up getting another tank. I think some variety there would be super helpful. Maybe that's just me switching to a main tank role from a support role and wanting it really bad. I don't really know, but it does feel like, I mean, you just hear so much about all the problems Reinhardt's are having and things like that. So maybe a CC resistant main tank option would be really good for the game overall. Then, you know, the CC can go into your back line and you can peel for them, and it can kind of be a similar style to what we're used to instead of just stun the Reinhardt twice and he dies to Hanzo arrows to the face or something like that.
Right.
They did say no new map, but what if we got 3 new maps because they announced a new game mode? I'm just throwing that out there. It's certainly something that I think could be possible. There's also ways I think they could repurpose existing maps in order to fit a new game mode. An example there would be, you know how what's it called? I saw this on, I think it was a Your Overwatch video that seemed like the most plausible idea. You take a payload map and you basically make it play out like the middle lane of a League of Legends game, where there's some destructible towers, some things that you have to defend and attack, and then there's like a core at the end. So, you know, kind of like a single lane of a MOBA style map game mode where you've got multiple objectives to besiege and take and destroy on your way to a main objective, something like that. But obviously you need some sort of time element to really push things along. Just an idea I saw. Personally, I'm not expecting a new game mode or anything like that. I think it's something they would really need to test and work on ahead of time. So I don't know that they would just announce it at BlizzCon, but it's the kind of big announcement that I think they really want to have at BlizzCon. So I'm not closing the door on it. I think it's possible. So yeah, those are kind of my 2 predictions.
Blevins?
Yeah, so there's been some rumors that there's going to be something big at BlizzCon, and game mode would definitely be big. But I mean, we got a new game mode in Capture the Flag not that long ago. I mean, I guess it was kind of long ago. It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was a little bit ago.
And Deathmatch, but like those were just those never ended up being like actually part of the, I guess, the competitive game. They were just arcade.
They had their
games.
own competitive section, but it was like, you know, put in the arcade.
Yeah, no, they didn't. I mean, they did, but they didn't. Like it never ended up meaning anything or being anything. It's not going to be an Overwatch League, which of course is our focus. But you know, those games kind of those game modes fell by the wayside. If they came out with a new game mode that they put into the competitive game, that would be interesting. But I don't think it's going to happen. There's so much that they'd have to do with it. So, in terms of things that could be big key announcements that aren't just a hero and you know, new skins and stuff, I don't know, more single player content, but like not just like, oh, there's going to be another event this year and it's, you know, the Uprising 5. It's like, okay, or Halloween Terror has, you know, 3 extra pumpkins. I could see, what if they did like something bigger than that? Like if they did like I don't know, some sort of campaign or something. I personally, I wouldn't really care that much about it, but it'd be like if they did like, I don't know, like single player campaigns or like playthroughs where you like play as Reaper through Reaper's story or something like that.
You know, in regards to that, one idea that I kind of had the other day, actually from World of Warcraft, was, I think it was like at the end of last expansion, they had this thing called the Mage Tower where you had to choose like your specialty and you would go in there and it would be like a test of strength, right? Like you would choose whether you go tank or healer or DPS and they would test your strength, basically like a fight that is catered specifically for like that hero, you know? So Overwatch could do something interesting with that as a single player content. Like, can you do something that is like a tracer challenge? And in the tracer challenge, you have to, you know, test your accuracy, test your, you know, how consistent you can be with your aim and your follow-up, test how good you can be with your blinks. Can you save them? And are you good at timing them, gauging the distance? Like maybe in the trial for Tracer, you have very limited space, maybe some places where you can fall off the thing, so you have to time your blinks very precisely. Maybe you can have like a Roadhog challenge where you have to be very careful where you use your health so you don't die at certain points and you reduce the damage at the right times. I don't know, but something like that single player I think would be pretty cool in the game as long as it's challenging, right?
Ooh, or what if they did, I don't know if it would be single player, it would probably be single player if it was like RPG style where like every time you beat one of the challenges you get like, oh, okay, so you can either have plus 10% movement speed or plus 10% damage, or like you get an extra blink as Tracer, and you start with like basic stuff. Like you start with one blink, you do like 2% damage, like you make
Blevins
it.
Really,
and then,
in case anybody didn't know, Blevins loved the dungeon runs in Hearthstone, so that sounds like what he's talking about.
Yeah, dungeon runs in Hearthstone.
Like you get
I love
power-ups as
roguelike
you
games.
move down like the challenge or something.
Roguelike games like Slay the Spire and Binding of Isaac, even though they're like very different types of game, they're both the roguelike. Like roguelike Overwatch single player. I just came up with that off the top of my head. That's confirmed, guys. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go into Blizzard jail for this, but I'm leaking it now. It happened. I know. Jeff called me and he said, whatever you do when you go on the show tonight, don't tell him. Sorry, Jeff.
Well, we were wrong about System of a Down as the musical guest, so now nobody
Once
trusts us.
Actually, that would have been too bad because they are going kind of back to the 90s.
Yeah, they're back. They're back. They're
actually touring in California,
cool.
like right now.
Nice.
So that's why it was like
would
a
have been
reason.
completely plausible.
They were there.
And
They were
awesome.
there. Bring it back a little bit to the topic of a new hero, though, because that's the most plausible thing that we're probably gonna get this BlizzCon.
Well, it's definitely going to be a new hero. I want more than that.
If it was gonna be a new
more than
hero,
just a new
though,
hero.
I want to throw some speculations over here because there's one thing in the game that I feel is missing a little bit. Like, can we have a hero that is a little more utilitarian, right? Like just utility, just one hero that is incredibly good just because of the toolkit that he brings to help his teammates or debuff or kind of get in the way of the enemy team. And one thing that I've been thinking about is there's no slow in the game. Like a lot of like MOBA like games or games like this have
There's May.
yeah, very
cough it.
very short range, but like the slow is not a significant part of her kit, right? Like
Sure.
it's usually not why you play her. It would be interesting to have a character that can maybe do it at a certain range, do it single target, or maybe AoE. So if everyone's clustered together, he can just cast it. Those people around it get slowed in a certain way. Could benefit characters like Reinhardt, for example, that already struggle with the hyper mobility of the game. And what if you take it like a step further? What if this character can also help its own teammates not get slowed or debuffed? Like if we could give something sort of like a Orisa Fortify, or like in World of Warcraft, like paladins have like that spell that makes them immune to all crowd control and they can just move freely for a certain amount of time. And what if you could give that to your teammates? Like if your Reinhardt's going to commit, boom, you give him the Fortify freedom, and now he
Like
has
Zarya.
like 4 or 5 seconds where he can't be slowed, he can't be stunned, he can't be thrown around like a puppet, etc. You get the gist.
Yeah, I feel like what you're talking about, like when we've kind of been like throwing out the names of the heroes that kind of have some of those abilities as you've mentioned them. But I've always loved the idea of a debuff centric aura hero, you know, like a paladin, like anti debuffer or whatever, that would just run around and negatively impact the rest of the team. Kind of think Lucio, how he can like speed buff or heal, but instead I want something that goes and slows the enemy and drains life from him.
Yeah,
I
can maybe get
like
a little more
Thorns.
in depth in that category. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a Thorns ability would be something that's really interesting in this
okay.
game.
Now we're talking.
Like
to really
Diablos.
punish. Yeah, to really punish the high damage backliners and things like that. You know, sure, you can one clip me on Tracer. You'll have 10 HP after you do it, and we've got people that can sneeze on you, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot that they can do with negatively impacting the other team. The only problem with that is when you, even when it's not even good, right? Like how much does everybody hate May?
Right,
And, like,
right.
She's not even great, but she like is a fun sync in the game, and that's my play style. When I play like card games, whatever, I'm always happiest when I'm aggravating my opponent, because then I can get them to make mistakes, I can get them to screw up, and I don't even have to be better than them. I can just tilt them into oblivion and
all
win.
about those brain games.
And I love doing that sort of thing. But so that's the only reason I can see why they wouldn't want to do that, is because it's got to be a nightmare to balance and allow the game to be fun in. And you look at them just trying to provide counter heroes, then you've got Brigitte and everybody's super mad, and I don't even think she's overpowered anymore. But nerfs are still incoming. So
Right,
I don't know.
but honestly, I like the idea that you said, for example, of Thorns, because Thorns is an example of an ability, right? If you could throw this on an ally that maybe reduce the damage they take by 10% and reflected some of that damage back to whatever attacker it was, it's an example of a great counterplay ability that doesn't feel terrible for the enemy, right? Because it's not like you're disabling them, you're not slowing them or taking them out of the battle. You're just
not affecting their health bar.
Right.
Like you
You're
would with
just
a
kind of
shield
like
or armor.
disincentivizing them. And if done at the right time, it can be like a roadblock, right? Like they maybe want to focus the monkey that is a little bit alone, but then it's like, oh, shoot, this monkey has thorns. If we all focus him right now, we might just all die right here or something like that.
Wasn't that kind of like Zarya's shield to an extent, where it's like you either need to be like, okay, we're all going to attack this and like take off the thorns, or I mean, I guess maybe it could just be over time, so they just stop attacking, or like, oh, we need to pop the thorns, we need to take the damage, or like charge the Zarya and then push.
And
it.
you would
So
have to make
it
that
definitely could work.
decision as an attacker, right? You have to weigh the risk, but then like it adds like that layer of complexity to the game where it's like a lot of counterplay, a lot of decision making that goes on. So those kind of abilities are pretty cool in my opinion. Same with like choosing to liberate her Reinhardt, because Zarya's shield is an example of an ability like that, and I think Zarya's shield
And
is
Genji
cool.
deflect
You know,
too,
yeah,
kind of.
the Genji deflect is cool.
So I kind of want to go back on a completely different tangent than like the thorns and the debuffing, because I think that is something that is like DB you were saying. It was just like it's too hard to make this something that's fun for anyone besides the player, right? That's using it. It's really hard to make it fun for everyone else and feel good. Like example May, or even Torbjorn for that matter, right? And Junkrat, where it's just like you're doing this one zone control type thing and you do it really well, but then everyone else is just like, I just died to something stupid, you know? But for me, I like looking back at how they kind of used what their inspiration was to design something and kind of like trying to make a separate derivative of that. And the example that I always like to go to is the Pyro in TF2, because it's not only a insta damage immediately, but it is also if you go out of my LOS, you're not getting slowed like May would, but you're actually just ticking damage down until the burn gets out or until you do something to get rid of it, whatever. So I would love to see something like that. It doesn't have to be fire. It can be literally anything. I mean, this is a futuristic game. You can make it similar to maybe Ana's shot, where it like seeps down like
right click.
in 2
You're
or
talking
3
about
clicks, or
like a
Moira's
dot,
right click, yeah.
kind of like a damage over time.
Yeah, but you
effect.
don't have to have like line of sight on it. It's just like something you put on them, and maybe you can only have it as one target. So similar to like a Zenyatta orb, but it's hit centric. It's not just like it happens. Like maybe if it's on them,
Widow's Mine.
kind of. But like Widow's Mine is like is setting up, like they have to walk on it.
Right.
This one is more of like it's in the it's in your cockpit. Like you have to
throw it
hit
at
the
them.
shot and then it goes. Right, so you take a little bit of damage. I guess the best way to do this is if you play World of Warcraft, there's a spell that Warlocks get called Immolate, but it just happens. So basically what you do is you fire a hit scan shot, and like it would hit them like with a burst of fire energy or something, and then they would burn for 5 seconds or something like that. And it would actually take it has to take a sizable enough amount of damage that healers have to commit to it. But then what they're doing is they're like, well, I have to make sure they don't die from this extra damage and also maintain the heals of everyone else. And then what you can do is you give that player in the cockpit that has this hit ability, if they're hitting their shots, their idea is not even focusing down targets, but just making sure everyone's taking damage on the enemy team and making it really, really hard on the healers. Just spins the whole dynamic in a completely different light and really emphasizes barrier use for defensive heroes. And then on the flip side, the other idea I had was taking what you see with Torbjorn, Symmetra, and Junkrat, and instead of making like each one of like the trap or the turret or the little sentries like one part of the kit, making that entire thing the kit. So saying like, well, they can throw this or they can throw this or they can throw a trap, and like they literally do nothing.
Oh, interesting. Like
So
they
kind of like a
can't fire-
Brigitte where they can only hit something like right next to them with a punch, but it's like every one of their other abilities is really strong. But it
Although
requires the
that-
enemy to
that
like
might
get
be
trapped.
How you get the next orb, though, the hero that everyone hates, nobody likes to play with.
It could be really weak, but it could also be spun in such a way that's really intriguing as well. So it depends
Could
on
be
how
really
they
I
spin
guess
it.
it would
Again,
depend on
this
the
is-
tools that he has. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe like you mix like a support hero with like a defensive hero is kind of the idea, like a health pack and a trap and then something else, like a vicinity-based turret.
You'd have to give him an incentive to engage at one point, because what is to keep one hero like that to just kind of like setting up everything and just being like 8 meters in the back or something?
Well, what if it was like, okay, so Brigitte and Reinhardt have this thing where they have to click to hit people, right? And they have to be within a minimum range. What if they just had something like the turret where it automatically shot stuff and you could just like use your clicking to point at what you want to shoot and it just does it? And you have to be close range to do it, and it just does a crap ton of damage. Like, I don't know, like a turret backpack or something stupid.
Turret
And then you're just throwing
backpack.
out health packs. You
Sounds
know?
terrifying.
Jetpack with a turret and health packs, and that's all you do.
Jetpack cat.
Jetpack
confirmed.
cat with a-
Rob's
with a gun.
calling Jetpack cat.
Railgun jetpack cat. There we go.
All these ideas are great, and ours would be super exciting. And I just think it's really funny that we're gonna get like a hit scan hero with
Yeah, we're
It's going to be McCree 2.0.
cut and dry abilities,
different
and we're all
damage
gonna be
abilities,
we're all
yeah.
gonna be like beside ourselves with excitement about it.
He shoots a gun,
It's just
or
'cause
he
it's
shoots a
I
different
really hope
gun.
that is the case, Death
Or
Bro.
he
I
shoots a
really hope that is
different
the
gun.
case.
You know, the game, honestly, if we're getting a DPS, it needs to be hit scan. Like the hit scan options have been in the game forever. Nothing's changed as far as hit scan is concerned. And they're ruining my life and buffing Mercy again. So yeah, we've got to get Pharaoh Mercy out of this guy.
If you're gonna add a new hit scan hero, like how do you differentiate it from the other ones? Like what would you give him that is different from McCree and Soldier?
Not one railgun, 2 railguns.
make him
Widow's
a
grappling
hamster in a ball, and then
You make Widow's grappling hook the shot, and it's hit scan.
So
So
wait,
you
I don't know
grappling
how
hook
that
to
would
the
go.
target that you're hitting. Instead of hooking them to you, you grapple to them.
that sounds awful.
it's like Widow Doomfist
That sounds-
hybrid, where you like
Yeah.
grapple to them and then punch them into the wall or something. I don't know.
I don't think you would
sounds-
punch them, but maybe you could just like drop them. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
they're high ground, or maybe.
So you want
okay.
Spider-Man?
Okay.
You put Spider-Man in the game and he webs them down.
Yes, Spider
Okay, I
jetpack
like
cat.
if the Grinch can be in Smash Bros,
Well, how is that-
then Spider-Man
how is
can
that
be in
hit
Overwatch.
scan?
Jetpack Spider Cat. Don't this,
make
Andres,
it
why
like-
are you
you just
ruining
call down
why are you
lightning.
ruining our fun?
Just call down lightning. It's like, it's like a wizard, space wizard, Overwatch. There we go. We figured it out.
It's all in a hit scan shell. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
It's gonna be great.
hit scan, but you don't have to aim.
Okay.
Just always
All
got
right, all right,
Soldier
all right.
Ultimate up.
Let's
Yeah,
go to
it'll be
Overwatch news real quick. We're never gonna get through this. All right.
No,
Um,
I've got 50.
So what do you
more
guys think
ideas.
of just new Torb opinions, right? We got the new molten core, the lava, the floor is lava, literally. We got the 150 armor overload with speed increase and armor. We got the new turret. We got the new rivet gun, speeds adjusted. What are you guys thinking of this? I know Deathblow, probably kick it to you first because you've been playing probably the most of all of us on this.
Yeah, we've tried this a good amount in scrims, and I've got to say it's really, really strong, and it's really good in very different places than you'd expect it to be. It's been very difficult for me. I've not gotten a ton of opportunities to play it. It's been on my team in the scrims, but I only had one night where I really got to just constantly Q Torb and go with it. And it's very different. Before you used to care about your turret and where you put it, and the positioning was super important. And now you just run in and you need to realize that you're basically Hanzo when you left click things now, and you just turn left quick and throw your turret over there, and then if they spend any time on it, you'll kill them while they're looking at it, sort of thing. So it's a very different play style with the new Torbjorn. I think it's very good in general. It's very good at tanky compositions. The new ultimate combos phenomenally with Graviton from your Zarya player. So you just group everybody up and make the floor lava underneath them, and they just drop. It's really good against those tanks, like I said. So if you're going against goats and you need a counter for it, we found Doomfist Torbjorn to be a really effective counter to goats. We've even been able to pull it off on King of the Hill maps. Like I said, the whole Torbjorn kit is a completely new animal now. As far as playing it goes, the new projectile is really, really different. It's goofy to play with, and I've really struggled with just having a high impact when playing it, because I just don't hit my left click shots like I used to, because I'm expecting old Torb gun, which I was mean with. I love that gun. It's a lot faster.
It's 10 faster, I guess, is what they said. But yeah,
it's significantly faster.
Arbitrary.
I don't think you drop as much either. I think it's a flatter trajectory, but I don't know for sure on that.
Yeah,
right.
It does feel like it, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm overcompensating, trying to hit headshots, and they're just flying over people's heads and things like that.
It feels more like a Hanzo arrow now to me.
And you've got to treat it like that. You basically just on shot or firing fully charged left clicks out of a Hanzo gun is basically what it feels like when you're hitting the shots. So it's really, really good. Also, when you're not me and you remember to Molten Core on cooldown, or very often whenever the fight happens, the old Molten Core, what is it, Overload it's called now? Yeah. It's just on a regular cooldown, and that's incredibly powerful. And as a Winston player trying to dive against Torbjorns, I can tell you just get popped like a zit so fast, it's not even funny. And there's so many things in the game that already do such high damage that it just kind of combos in with the Junkrat they're playing, or the Hanzo that's on his team as well. And if you dive a Torbjorn, you're just going to die. So it's really, really interesting to play around those changes and just figure them out. Listen, I've always loved Torbjorn. Maybe it's just because I'm such a large giant that I always like the really small guys in games. No Morlock in World of Warcraft was my ideal class, race combo to play until Goblins came out, because Horde's way better than Alliance. Don't at me. If you play Alliance, don't come up to me at BlizzCon. I will just be making fun of you. He's been a lot of fun to learn and play around and figure out. So if you are a good projectile player and you are really good at Hanzo, pick this guy up and play him, because I think you're going to have a lot of success with him if you can get used to the new projectile.
Okay.
I was going to say, I do love the direction that they took Torbjorn in. Like you were saying, him being really good against tanks is just a great little counter to have in your pocket when Ghost is getting out of hand, or the enemy team is just trying to cheese you out with health. You're just you know what? I got you. Bring the Torb out. And he's a sturdy little DPS. Like you were saying, diving him is usually not a good idea, because he has now that Molten Core pretty much on demand, right? As long as the Torbjorn is saving it for the right times, you're not gonna catch him off guard like that. The armor is pretty good. So as a DPS in general, he's on the sturdier side, I feel.
Yeah. If you dive him, he pops it right away. The cooldown's up so that he can pop it again to clean up your team at the end of the fight, and then it'll be up again for the start of the next fight. So focusing him is almost not the way to go, which is really weird, because he's such a high damage output right now, especially if you're anywhere near him and he can right click. It's created a very interesting dynamic. And but it also, we're saying all these nice things about him. It doesn't feel overpowered to me personally.
Well,
I just think
I agree to that.
Right. Like, I just think on Winston, I'm so used to, well, I'll just dive the Torbjorn, place my turret right in front of, or place my shield right in front of the turret, and then the turret will be dead, and then I don't need to fight the Torbjorn. As long as his turret's down, he's not getting value. And that's definitely not the case anymore. So you just really need to change how you play against it, and maybe don't dive into it so much. Just go with like a Ryan Zarya comp and get your spam DPS, you know, play like Hanzo Farah into it, or Widow and Farah, or, you know, you just need to be able to spam down, and whenever the shield's down, be able to kill the turret,
right?
And you know, you'll be in a pretty decent.
And I was about to say that, like, range is your friend right here. Like, Torbjorn is filling a very niche role right now. Like, great against tanks, great against like those DP or like compositions that kind of have to like slowly drag their way to the point. But as soon as you bring some range, even like McCree or Soldier can actually give him a hard time, because, you know, he's still a very medium to close range kind of guy. That's like where his preferred method, and the turret still requires some setup, so you have to play into him to get the most out of it. But if you're keeping your distance and just firing some massive shots at him, he does have a pretty big head, so, you know, widows tend to enjoy that.
All right, well, for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of blast through these and then kick it to Blevins to talk about World Cup and the new deathmatch. Okay, so we have Season 12 is now ended. By the time you're listening to this outside of the live show, it is UTC, or Universal Time, at 00 on October 29th. And it's also 5 p.m. on the same day in Pacific Time. And Season 13 kicks off the next 3 days later on November the 1st, 0 UTC, or 5 p.m. October 31st on Pacific Daylight Time. Again, keep that in mind that the daylight time, it will be shifting in stateside to standard time after BlizzCon. So if you have those flights home and you are stateside or North America, South America, those time zones will shift and you have daylight savings time leaving for standard. For me, it doesn't really affect me. I'm still losing crazy amounts of time with traveling across the globe, but yeah. There's also the rewards as a reminder for you guys. Bronze is 65 rewarded CP if that's where you're peaked. Silver at 125, gold at 250, platinum at 500, and then if you're a diamond plus, you have to end there, I believe. You have to end in these ranks in order to get these CPs, which is 750, 1200, and 1750 accordingly.
I thought you were going to say it was unfair, because it feels unfair.
It feels unfair. Okay. Any other comments for the peanut gallery, DB?
No, I just want my master's rewards, and I'm not going to finish there. So.
Oh yeah. You've been playing a lot of scrim, so it happens, right? Yeah. All right, Blevins, talk to me about Team Deathmatch returns.
Team Deathmatch returns.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I just don't care about Team Deathmatch at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're both pretty anti that game mode, but
yeah,
it looks like it'll be back for the off season.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's nice to have something that is there to play somewhat competitively in the off season, which is fine. But deathmatch, like I like warming up with deathmatch, and like it's fun for a little bit for me, but a lot of times it's just like I couldn't care less about it.
Okay.
I would say like that's like the closest we're gonna get to getting another game mode, like one of these like competitive like 4v4 deathmatch style. I've played him before.
Yeah.
I've had a good time with him. The thing about him is that kind of like Blevins and Deathblow, like not a lot of people really care much for the game mode, so you don't get a lot of competition or ease of access people to just like play with you in this sort of game mode, which I think is the sort of game mode that you kind of want to have that, you know, because that was the point of grouping up with people if you're not gonna, you know, work together. And
right
at that point you might as well just join regular deathmatch. So it's a little harder to, you know, get hyper competitive in that mode, but I personally enjoy it just because it's very to the point and you still get to play off some of the team synergies that you would do in comp.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in team deathmatch or just in single deathmatch, it's just like you by yourself. What can you do with your hero?
It's a very different feel because it is the team orientation. Like you have the 4v4 first to 30, like that's team deathmatch, whereas the other one is like was it first to 20, first to 25, and it's like 1v1v1 up to 8 players. It's
Yeah,
like,
and like the team deathmatch,
Yeah.
you still get to take advantage of healers, of tanks in the traditional way that you take advantage of them. So I enjoy it because of that. And personally, I like the
I like
to the
Moira a lot
point
in those.
nature of it. You know, like there's no objective. It's just like go kill each other. I do like that.
Yeah, it is nice, kind of mindless isn't really the best word for it, but it feels kind of like mindless. I just go in, I'm getting my kills, I'm healing. I love playing Moira in those modes, but yeah, no, it's, I don't know, even though it is like a competitive air quotes mode, it's just not, it's not part of like the competitive suite for competitive games. So it's like, and I don't think it ever will be. And I don't think it probably shouldn't be, just because it's so, well, it's not 6v6 first of all.
it's not
so
what the game balances around.
Exactly. So it's fun, and a lot of people like it. So I like that people like it, and I play it from time to time. It's just not something I put a lot of time into.
All right, let's skip this other thing that I put in the show notes. We're going to go straight to World Cup. We're talking about how if you guys want to talk more and World Cup predictions, we're going to actually probably touch on this on our panel, and the High Noon pre-BlizzCon episode will be ad nauseum probably with this because there's going to be a lot of overlap. But we can probably just run through some quick things if you'd like, maybe like a quick preview, and then kind of move on to PTR.
Yeah, we already did our like bracket predictions, so we'll just kind of go over them here and probably let that stand. But it's out there, our full in-depth predictions for sure.
Okay, Blevins, you want to take us away here?
Yeah, so the first is UK versus USA. Yeah, if anyone says UK, I can just turn the stream off now. That's fine, but I'm solidly picking USA here.
Yeah, I don't think these teams are really personally on the same tier. We're talking about USA, and they performed like in their qualifier, like one of the front runners. There's really, to my mind, this is a 3-man race going into this 8-man tournament bracket, and USA is one of those people in the race. The UK is not, so I don't see how the UK overcomes just the talent discrepancy here. They're also, UK is switching out their main tank. Christopher's going into a coaching role. I can't remember exactly who they're bringing in to replace them off the top of my head, but you know, they're now going to like their second option at main tank, so they're even kind of theoretically downgrading their roster. Not that it has to play out that way, but
it's the British Hurricanes main tank is moving into that role, by the way.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, like Muma is the best in the West as far as tanks are concerned. So no matter who they bring,
which is arguably one of the best too.
Yeah, Muma space is terrifying. So I expect a front line of the USA to just completely walk through the front line of UK. And after that, it's just going to be a matter of cleanup and what heroes they play to do it with. So it should be a lot of fun to watch that one if you're a USA fan. Also, really enjoy the new spectator mode that you guys get that we don't get to play with because we're going. Make sure you guys check that out as well. You can like watch in client and like control the camera yourself and watch different player perspectives.
You know, we didn't touch on that, but we
forgot to talk about that.
That's a huge thing that this BlizzCon is offering. I mean, I'm sure most people have seen the announcement from Jeff, but we're basically getting the spectator mode that we've always talked about and wanted to get this BlizzCon. Granted, it's going to be a limited version of it. We're only going to get it for the World Cup. You're going to have to download a separate client of the game that has this version. But you're gonna be able to watch all of the matches. Yeah, it's not gonna be.
It's a beta test.
That's a huge yikes.
Yeah,
that is a huge yikes.
But it does mean that they're working on it, and it does mean that it's at least at a stage where they can put it out to the public and test it out. I think this is gonna be their beta test, basically. Like, how does it go with the World Cup? How do people interact with it? Is it working? Do people like it? Should we add more features? Should we take away features? I that's my guess right now.
I didn't realize you had to download a different client.
It's not really like a full game client.
It's going to be in that little button where you have like PTR in your region. You'll just get another one because they did that with WoW and WoW Classic. So
but
WoW
do you have
Classic
to download another...
You'll have to download... I don't know if it's a full game they have to download, but you do have to download a separate thing.
It's because it's a beta test. They can't introduce something that might cause any problems into the client.
Right. They don't want to mess with the main game.
I'm interested to see how many people actually do that, because now I'm like, yeah, I would do it mostly because I want to talk about it. But like, if I were just a random person watching, like,
Yeah,
The hype
really
I've seen.
care
I mean,
enough to
your average everyday fan is fine, but to me, what's so great about this mode here isn't even the spectator experience, which will be massively better for having this. Go figures. The one time I'm going to BlizzCon, they increased the stay-at-home experience tremendously. But what this is going to do is it's going to allow content creators on YouTube to get unique camera angles that will be specific to their videos. It's going to up everybody's game as far as, people were complaining about the viewing or the viewers for Overwatch League for how long, right? Like how many Reddit threads were devoted to what camera angle was. You know what I mean? Like now all these guys that want to do that can now practice at home. Right? Like they can go watch a game and they can go watch it live and try to hot swap between and figure out what they want to do. So
Be their own
now there's
production.
they can train for this and really differentiate themselves by making YouTube content, things like that. So this to me is just what, and this is something that's come up on the High Noon show. It sounds like you guys have brought it up a lot too. How many times we've said, just do what Dota's doing. Like why Dota has it? Why don't you have it? Right.
I mean, their games historically have
replays,
had a
too.
replay system and a very good one. Like
Right.
Warcraft 3, StarCraft, they'll have like an amazing replay system where you can basically relive the game from any angle at any speed that you want. And it sounds like that's basically what we're getting
Fortnite has it.
with this feature. Just not quite into the game, but in the early stages of it, which makes me really excited. As my main thing about it is just being able to watch the particular players that I like basically 24/7 during the match. Like
what they do.
Yeah, I want to see that Tracer player, that Widow player. I want to see how they approach the angles. Like when they're turning around the corner, I want to see where they're looking at, where they're like
You
turning
get
their
access to the
heads.
slow cam too.
Yeah.
So if you're watching in the client, do you still hear the broadcast?
We don't know, but my guess is no.
I don't exactly know, but my guess is
You do
that
in Dota, or you can in
my
Dota.
guess is there's gonna be a channel of the broadcast, and hopefully you can separate from that channel and do
sync it.
the spectator yourself while listening to the casters, because that would be the ultimate, right? If you can have the view while still enjoying the regular broadcast, kind of like in the background, that would be awesome.
I would say it's
feel bad
probably
for
safe
one
to
monitor
assume that
people.
this is something, if we don't
Right.
know anything about it, that we shouldn't really comment on if it's important or not until we get it, and then we can see what we
Right.
got. Just from the nature of that and how much time we have left with this show.
Right, but talking about
additionally,
features,
I'll-
that's definitely coming, and it's a big one.
Yeah, and I definitely want to highlight one aspect of this, because this is our first look at how players and people in the production team can utilize some new tools with also matching the brand new color blindness options. And I know that this is kind of something that people aren't discussing, but truth of the matter is the colorblind options have been awful until a couple weeks ago. They've been so bad. Like some of the worst in top esport games, the color blindness options have been very, very, very poor and subpar with regards to what they can even have access to if you have that disability, and how far reaching that disability is with how many different kinds of it there are. And now you have people that can, like Deathblow touched on. I'm glad you talked about people can train this. Now you have people that are disabled that can train for this, because we didn't have that before. And even if we did get the tool and now they didn't have the color blindness option before this happened, they've laid a lot of groundwork to get us there. I mean, think back to what we were talking about last year before BlizzCon. They're like, hey, we have these new options. You guys can see all the teams in one color in their jerseys, the in-game jersey thing. Right? That's huge. And maybe this year we'll get actually World Cup, not OWL, World Cup style jerseys you can buy in the game. That would be huge.
That would
right?
be cool. That would be cool.
So we have all of those cool things that could be coming, but yeah, this is maybe the best update we got this year, not just like some exciting thing, right? Like this is maybe the best thing coming to the game period that we've been asking for over a year.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
I try not to jump to give Blizzard too much credit, because this is something that basically every other esport has had for a very long time.
Oh,
It's something like Fortnite.
It's an expectation that they need to be
Right.
under at this point.
Right. Fortnite got it very quickly. So really, this is more Blizzard catching up than Blizzard doing something really, I mean, it's great, but it's not like wow, Blizzard is really innovating. It's like, no, they're very far behind and they're finally catching up.
It's really interesting too because you like to see how far behind they are in some aspects of the game really shows where they're pushing their resources. Because we know that their resources are definitely making the esport, putting this out, seeing what they can do with that, getting budgeting, getting advertising, putting all of their funding in all of their eggs in that basket. And then
balance.
once they get there,
their entire team was basically working around the league.
And balance. And so what you see is there's not a whole lot of casual player experience insanity that you're going to be able to see that's like really, really fun for a lot of players because Overwatch, frankly, isn't that casual. I guess you could say like casual catered, I would say, outside of the console player experience because they do typically balance. They do balance the game for console, which is nice, right? That's not something that you can say about every game. I know that for a fact. I mean, some of this Yeah, go ahead. That's well. I've been talking.
And I was just going to say, in defense of Blizzard on this one too, and it's coming up in chat while I was waiting for my chance to mention it. So thanks, Monkey Prince. But a lot of games, pre-existing games, and I don't know about Fortnite, and I don't usually follow this too closely. They come from like the Unreal Engine, or they're based off of pre-existing, So presumably Fortnite's on it, and a lot of these tools like replay and the ability to do that might be built into those engines. So with Overwatch, they created everything from scratch. They just had a blank sheet. So they needed to hard code all that from the beginning. So the other games that are keeping, using existing platforms, and now it's kind of an excuse, but it's not at the same time.
At the beginning, like they could.
But
just
it was
use
the game is
Unreal
infinitely
Engine.
better because of that.
Is it?
I really think so. I've never played anything in the Unreal Engine that felt as clean and polished as Overwatch personally. But again, I could have played games and not known they were in the Unreal Engine because normally I don't care. I just want the game to be fun.
I don't know enough about the engines to differentiate between what's good and bad about them. I just know that Dota and CSGO and all these other things have a lot of really great features, and Overwatch doesn't have those things.
I don't think you would have had the polished feel, the high level graphics, everything that you have with Overwatch. I think it would have been a much sloppier game, and it wouldn't have had that
water
Blizzard
coated on. That's what I want.
I don't know, but we need every game should use that water for the rest of time.
You make a good point though. Like they do build everything from scratch, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it allows them to have.
It's a time-consuming thing.
So much freedom, right? Yeah, it's a very time-consuming endeavor, that is for sure, and that's why Overwatch has been in the making for like over 10 years if you count like Titan and like what that took. But now they have this engine that they control themselves. They can modify at any time. They can get into the guts of that thing and change it like from the ground up, So not a lot of companies can say that they have their proprietary engine that they can make games out of, which I think is huge for them.
Blevins, you were going to say something?
I've made my point already. I'm not impressed, and
it was snide and snarky. Don't worry about it.
It's very snide and snarky.
The only thing that I want to say about this, before we move on, is that when you're looking at something that a company is doing that requires, like we were saying, a ton of resources because it hasn't been built in that engine yet, so they're literally like pioneering the process and making something out of it that hasn't existed before, and trying to match something that exists in another engine. But once that stuff is done, once you basically lay the groundwork and the foundation is there and you have the basis and then you've built something on the foundation, now you can actually get to work and not dedicate as many resources to changing what's there. So what we're seeing is over the course of Blizzard's lifespan in Team 6, Overwatch Team Titan, when they've made this engine, they've done all these things, they've actually had to create a lot of these groundworks over the course of time since we getting to this point of Blizzard's like existence with Overwatch. So every time they do something like this that is a fundamental building stage item that they're putting into the game, I feel like that just means that that's one less big thing they have to dedicate resources to in the future. Right. And so what we're going to see, I think, is basically over the first, this is year 3 of Overwatch that we're going on after this time. I think that's right.
2016.
So I think once we're building, now we're basically going to start seeing a snowball effect. We're going to see a lot of stuff happening. We're going to see, like we've seen, like we see tons
you're forgetting what company we're dealing with still.
Hero updates. We're going to see like more spectator features. It doesn't mean that they're going to be as detailed or as far reaching, but what I mean is that the volume of the update is probably going to be larger. That's what I'm basically
I
saying.
seriously doubt that.
I think you're forgetting
maybe
what developer we're dealing with, because we're dealing with the best video game developer in the world, in my opinion. And you
I think our
forget,
grandkids will have
how did
really great
Realm
Blizzard
Royale
games.
go? Do you want people that use engines? How did that go? There's
Hold
so
on,
many
okay,
other
hold
developers
on a
that
second.
ruin
Let's not-
things.
let's
Hold
not
on a
say
I'll let
second.
Blizzard take
High
their time.
Res is trash. High Res is a trash developer, but there
And
are
the
other
overall, I'd say they're
developers that are
probably
fine.
above average.
Blizzard
they
is
still
definitely
exist.
above average. on
Right.
Things.
Like, I think they're above average. I just think Blizzard's
Sure.
the tops, and because of that, they put expectations on themselves to release a level of polish that no other
I
developer
think
does. So that
Blizzard
means
does
you
a
wait.
lot of things
but
really great, and speed is not one of them.
I don't think I was even mentioning speed in that entire equation. I think that's something you're kind of reading into what I was saying. I was saying volume. When you
Well,
get
I'm
the
just
update, there's
saying,
more
yeah.
content there. It doesn't mean that it's happening faster. It just means that over the course of time with regular updates, you're getting more in that venue.
I'm just trying to get in Blizzard jail so that when I show up, they don't yell at me for.
It doesn't take much. You just say boo once.
You're gonna
when-
show up and
when
your media
anyone's
badge is
playing.
gonna be revoked.
Oh, that would be the
I just
story.
want-
I will have my recorder ready. I will
I
have it
want
ready.
two like orc guards to come and put me in physical Blizzard jail. That's what I want.
I want the Murloc run or the Murloc march that they're doing to have two of them dressed up like, I don't know, Blizzard employees mixed in a Murloc outfit taking you to Blizzard.
Wait, what is this?
jail.
What is a Murloc march?
They're doing some cosplay event where they just walk from one side of the end to another, and yeah, it's kind of weird. It's on the schedule. All right, let's get into PTR now that we're done with talking about craziness. So the first thing is that in general, on the PTR, all jump height consistencies across the hero roster have been changed. And I had to actually watch a video on this and do some testing on the PTR to figure out what this means. Basically what this means...
Torbjorn's got ups like LeBron.
This means that your you basically, from what I was seeing, is that your jump height is adjusted for what you can do with crouch jumping from a standing position versus like a running position. So if you jump and then hit the crouch button at the end of your jump, you actually get more height like you would do in any traditional shooting game that's first person. It's just like across the board. Well, in Overwatch, in a lot of ways, in some areas of the maps, it would actually be better for you to walk up to the wall, jump, and then crouch, and then you can move. So it's really weird. It like had to do with the momentum and how it was coded. So basically, they're making it so that everyone's jump height is not just in that frame, so that you have a moving jump height that's more consistent amongst everyone, but everyone also has equal distance how much they can jump. Not like within the character model, but how much movement you can do. So like the meme says, right, Torbjorn can jump as high as, you know, a big modeled Roadhog. So Roadhog looks like he can only jump like 5 inches, whereas Torb has like 10 feet. Right. So everyone's jump height is the same now, and it is adjusted. So you're going to have to kind of play with some of the places you thought you could jump before, you may not be able to anymore. And this does affect rocket jumping. So if you're going to go mess with that, you're going to need to go play with it.
It's an interesting
All right.
change.
Again, this is not something we can talk as ad nauseum like I would like to, but that's just because there's little time between when this update went live and a lot of testing that needs to be taking place before I can actually comment on it.
Yeah.
But there will be YouTube videos. There'll be other streamers that are doing this. Please go check it out. I know that I'll shout out Overwatch Central because I'm sure I'll go see Ryan again when we go down there. But they made a pretty good, at least small video about the jump height consistency with regards to crouch jumping that you can go check out on their YouTube page. All right. Who hates Mercy the most and who wants to talk about Valkyrie's change? Let's go. DB.
Yeah, I had to change my role because of this hero. So, yeah, Mercy's Valkyrie is getting ultimate cost reduction by 15%, and the healing per second while in Valkyrie is increased from 50 to 60. So, to me, this is walking back a little bit of the last nerf that basically brought Ana into the forefront, made the support gameplay about, what's the word, skill again. So, this is, to me, really frustrating. I kind of hate this change. The end of the Moth meta, the end of the Mercy meta where everything was being played, she was good because her ultimate was so good, right? So now they've buffed her ultimate to bring it back in line with about where it was before. And now she's still technically dealing less healing while outside of the ultimate, so it should charge slower, but they're making it charge faster just on a baseline percentage. So this is, to me, going to put us back to a similar state where we were at the end of the Mercy meta. full disclosure, I've not been the best and most accurate predictor of what metas will be after balance changes and things like that. So I could very easily be wrong about the impact this will have.
Pretty much everybody that makes predictions about meta.
Yes. It's so different in a first shooter environment than it is in like a card game environment that I'm used to, that sort of thing. Yeah. But if you can get to the point where the first fight is the only one where Valkyrie's not up, like it was previously, then she will be back to a must-pick status again, and Ana will get pushed out, is kind of the way I think this is going to go. I don't understand this at all. I think universally, if you're not a Mercy main, you were exceedingly happy with the change. You really enjoy this meta much more than before. There's never been diversity in support heroes. And I almost want them to stop trying to make that happen and just deliberately rotate them in and out of relevance by, adjusting things and just kind of let there be a little bit of a cycle to it, and not really focus on trying to make it so that way you can switch freely between 4 of them, because it's been so long since I've seen anything like that. And by that, I mean, I've never seen anything like that in the history of the game, that I'm okay with it. The game's been fun for me. I've been a support player the entire time it was happening before. And until it was, sorry, Deathblow, we need you to play Mercy. It's like, okay, I quit the team. I'm done. That was kind of how it went with me. So yeah, just go back to, let us play the Lucio Ana meta out for a little while. I don't want them to bring Mercy back into relevance. It was too long where she was there and must pick and is no fun. And it's a first person shooter. I don't want a staff out that I use to heal people with. I want a gun. I want the ability to defend myself while I do my job. And so I don't know. Mercy's just very much so not my hero. I don't want to even be tempted or feel like I should play her or anything like that. And I don't know. I'm very nervous about this particular line in the PTR patch notes.
I don't know. Although I agree that I don't want to go back to the Mercy meta where Mercy had to be there every single game. I don't know if this change alone is gonna make us go back to that. To me, this is more of a Mercy is getting neglected quite a lot, and Ana's clearly the superior healing in most situations. I think that this change at least gives you more of a reason to bring her in. And to be honest, the changes Ana has had have been fantastic. The biggest change that I think brought her into the forefront was that ultimate buff that she got, where now her ultimate is no longer just an offensive ability, but you can actually use it to heal and protect your allies. And if somebody's gonna die, you're like, It gave her like Mercy-like characteristics, right? You can almost return somebody from death with the nano boost. I mean, as long as they're not literally dead. And I think this just makes it so that Mercy is just not completely forgotten. Because right now, if you're a fantastic Ana player, you're going to out-heal a good Mercy player. There's just no way around it. You just have more healing per second at this point. So I like that they're giving her back some healing, but not all the time. Only with her ultimate is active, and now she's gonna get her ultimate a little bit quicker. And I think it's gonna be all about that ultimate. Mercy players are gonna want to get that ASAP, because as long as they don't have that, they might as well be playing Ana, as long as they're good with Ana.
Yeah. She'll continue to be mediocre without the ultimate, and deeply in my heart, I want you to be 100% correct. So, I hope you're right.
For me, I feel obligated anytime a support change goes live to voice an opinion. But to me, I feel like I'm kind of the in between Andres and Deathblow, and not just for the sake of argument's sake. But basically, I feel like this is just a huge step back from what they did say that they were gonna do with her kit. They're like, hey, this is too strong. This is what we're gonna do, and this is what we did. But the problem was for me is that, like Andres said, with the flexibility in them putting this back, is that she actually has a non-defensive tool. Like she can help the engagement, so the push with the healing and the damage boost, right? Like the Orisa. But for me, I just want this to be more about the decision, not just to pop the ultimate, but what you do during it. I want more offensive capabilities while you're using it. Like offensively, to fly in the air and put the healing beam on 6 targets doesn't feel offensive at all. Even though it might be labeled as such, I want to whip out the pistol and I want to frag, okay? I don't care if I got angel wings and I look like a nurse. I want to shoot you in the head. I want you to die, okay? So, there is nothing in the game that they've done with any of the Mercy changes outside of when they made this ability have infinite ammo that Mercy has gotten that is a feel of an offensive movement. And so for me, it's like if you're going to adjust Valkyrie and you want to make it feel more powerful, you're going to have to change it so that it fits a specific venue. And that's what they did. So they're saying, look, you have to do the healing per second increase. And it's like, well, what they were doing before is they're getting a lot lower healing output throughout the game. And now they're just saying, well, we're just making the ultimate the way it was before. That's in essence what's going on. And then you're going to be able to get it faster. So for me, it's like, if they're going to change this, it could shift the meta, it could not. But the last time we got a Mercy update where she got slapped into the ground, Ana's gotten the best buff that she's ever received, which is healing 300 health at the same time. So now we need to see what it's like in this environment where we have 300 health every time you nano somebody, or if you want to trade that for a actually good Valkyrie. So there's those two dichotomy things that we need to kind of analyze when we're looking at this. Do we have answers? No, because this is not a prediction show. We don't predict the meta. We just see what happens. All right, the next one. Reaper. This is interesting. I'm going to take this one real quick, and then I'm going to pass it to whoever wants it next. I'll probably just give it to Andres next. So Reaper's Hellfire Shotgun Scott received 2 changes. The first change is that the passive Reapening, which basically gives him lifesteal on his ultimate and his shotguns, has a 20% of what damage you deal, you get back in health, has been increased to 30%. So you're getting back more health while you're shooting, thus making you more durable during your ultimate, durable during 1v1s, and durable during just overall long form engagements. And then last is the spread randomization has been reduced by 50%. And this was a big contention point recently because people were like super excited. Okay, so the spread's going to be more consistent. We're going to do more damage. People made spreadsheets and they look at the spread and there's like these double ring effect happening in the randomization where there's an outer and a lower center ring for where the pellets are hitting. And if you look at the spread from 10 meters and out from shooting people, it actually took you 3 before, and after the change, it's taking you like 5 to 7 shots to kill somebody, which is a lot worse. So
Yeah.
Jeff said on the update on the PTR that after people have been spreading this around the forums, he says, look, we're going to update this again on the PTR. This is not going to hit live the way it is currently. So we're going to see another iteration this coming week before BlizzCon to see what actually happens. Well, we might even cover this on the panel. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Maybe I can get a chance of checking it out before we hit to BlizzCon, but no promises there. What do you guys think about this? I know that you guys are probably aware of all of these things going on, but what do you think? Adjusting Reaper.
It's needed, right? Like Reaper has fallen off the face of the planet. Like there hasn't been a situation where in the past month where I've thought, you know what, Reaper would really help in this situation. Like it's always like a different hero that I think about, and they're addressing literally his main weakness, being able to get up close and surviving long enough to make a difference, right? He is pretty lethal if he can get up close, but the problem is with all the Brigittas, Doomfist kind of thing that is going on, it's just too hard for him to stay alive with a small like life suck or like life leech that he has.
Mobility.
Yeah, he has one ability to get out of it in a relatively medium cooldown, so it's not like you can always get out, not like Moira. So I don't know, they're addressing his main weakness. Not by like a huge lot. It depends to see how consistent his shooting is going to be afterwards. The life leech is really nice. That 30% is actually a pretty significant chunk, especially if the consistency with the hits goes up to the point where you could have a Reaper that is full healing himself after some of these fights. What do you think, Blev?
I don't know. I think it gives him more survivability, kind of, but does it really though? Like if you get hit by Brigitte, you get stunned, you get CC'd, you having lifesteal doesn't matter because you're just gonna die. He has such a low life pool, and you get hit by a stun and just instantly killed. Now, I don't know if they would ever do this, and they probably shouldn't. Like if he had a passive where like if he gets stunned, he immediately like it insta wraith walks him.
Ooh.
Like the first time, and that's like on a cooldown. That would be kind of cool because it's like, oh, you get hit by the Brigitte stun. Okay, I can at least get out and maybe reposition or escape or something. But like as it stands, like he could have 100% lifesteal, the problem is still there. He's still squishy. He still gets picked off from afar. He's not fast. He's not mobile. He has one escape. I don't know. I'm not.
That is a very interesting idea. If you could give Reaper some sort of passive that when he loses control of the character, maybe it's not like an insta wraith walk, but like an in-betweener kind of thing. Maybe he's like half in the wraith world, half in the real world, which translates into him taking reduced damage for the duration
he takes
of the
reduced damage
stun
and doesn't
or something like that. Maybe stuns last less time on him. Maybe just some sort of like effect that would make it unappealing to stun a Reaper, right?
Yeah, they have abilities like that in like Heroes of the Storm. I think Tassadar like has a talent you can take. Yeah, and he has a talent where like if he gets hit below a certain HP, he instantly queues it. Yeah, something like that. Because like if Reaper gets stunned, like he's dead, and he's short range, so he's gonna get like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work out.
That's a good pickup, Blevins, because they also have another talent that lets you, when you use that ability, you actually just get healed.
Yeah.
So they could do something like that where you
too.
have some sort of like slow passive healing. Maybe not even that much. Maybe just like 50 or something like a little lower than what May does. But when you're wraith walking, you're gaining health. That could be good.
Or even like some heroes have also these abilities where the lower you get in health after a certain threshold, sort of like your defenses go up somehow, right? Like your resistance or you take less damage somehow. So maybe you could make it so that below 30% health, damage is reduced by like 50% or something, which buys the Reaper some sort of time to regain some health, right? And not die right away. Something like that actually could be pretty helpful.
I think they have that kind of built in a little bit, though, because they do give him 250 health. He's not a 200 health hero. So I do think that little durability is there. And it would be interesting because of how like armor works in the game. We've only ever seen it like health, armor, shield. So like if Reaper ever had armor and they could recode it so that the last like 10 to 50 or sorry, not the last 10, last 25 to last 50 or 75 health was just armor, but it wasn't armor until you got there. They'd have to like recode it. They could probably do that, like, but then they'd have to reduce his health down to 200 to do that, I think.
They could call it I'm already death or something. You know, the closer he gets to dying, the harder it is or something.
I'm already dead. What if he could shoot? What if he could shoot while he's in wraith form, but it doesn't deal damage, it just slows, but you heal the same that you would, or you heal like 50% of the damage.
Honestly, these ideas are pretty interesting for Reaper. I wonder if they've ever tried any of these already, because we know they tried a lot of things in-house, but we never get to see them.
They probably haven't. They know that.
Can't wait for
they're all
update
terrible.
on the spread. Once the spread gets updated, we're gonna see that leech effect really hitting pretty home, I think.
Yeah, it's been super hard to evaluate anything they're doing here because it's getting changed again, and we know that the intended buff turned out to be a nerf. But for me, just kind of theory crafting, looking at this, is he going to be better at his job than Doomfist is? My answer is no. So we're making him better? Are we making him playable? I don't think so. I think he's going to be pretty niche. And like Blevin said, we're so burst damage dependent in the meta right now, where it's you stun somebody, you stun the Reinhardt shield, your Hanzo storm arrows, and he dies, and then we're good. Or your Doomfist punches somebody into a wall and they die. And lifesteal, like Blevin said, doesn't help you in that scenario. So in this meta, I don't think he's going to be better. And until he becomes better than Doomfist, either by more buffs to Reaper or nerfs to Doomfist, I don't see him becoming any sort of mainstay in the meta, just kind of an option in maybe particular points. He's a better, I'll say this, he's a better goats counter than he was before, and he might be viable to bring in against something like that. So maybe he's better as a counter pick now instead of even unusable as a counter pick in his current state, but I don't think he's going to be a mainstay or anything.
Okay, next one up is Roadhog. He has some changes to the scrapped gun, the chain hook, and whole hog. So the first up, chain hook decreases the long delay before you pull the target from 0.5 seconds to 0.3. So basically the registration on when the hook hits, you wait 0.5 seconds and then yoink happens, okay? So now that's shorter. It also greatly reduces the target's momentum when they are hooked. This is likely because of issues that they've seen with like Lucio's, who you would hook and they would just like phase through you because it'd be like, they would just like use you and wall right off your face because of momentum. You would have wrecking balls that you would hook and they would just roll you over because they have enhanced momentum on that kit based on how they coded him. And then last, you have the cooldown actually starts when the hook is used. So that is huge. You have way more hooks per fight now. And because it's not just because of this change, but also this is compounded on getting 0.2 seconds left when you're having the delay in addition to that. So you're actually being able to jump back into the fights much faster. You have less window where you're vulnerable. Next up, the scrap gun has a spread pattern. Again, similar to Reaper, has been adjusted for the primary and secondary with the randomization reduced by 50%. And last up, the whole hog knockback maximum velocity is actually increased from 8 to 10 meters per second. Now, this is maximum velocity. So this doesn't mean like when you get hit. This is basically when you get hit by whole hog, it does a knockback. And the max velocity is based off of your vicinity where you are closer or further away to Roadhog. So you're only going to feel this when you get closer to him within his minimum range or his maximum knockback, aka minimum range, like right next to him, and he activates whole hog. You are going to be shot faster than a wrecking ball off of Ilios, okay? You're going to be out of there.
I'm still going to charge him on Reinhardt. You can't stop.
Yeah, exactly. So that is going to be crazy. And also, one of the weird changes that I actually super like is the horizontal recoil is reduced slightly, which means you don't have to like drag your mouse off onto the floor to like pull down the whole hog. So you're not just shooting the sun, okay?
Wait, isn't that vertical recoil?
Oh, you're right. But I don't know if horizontal recoil refers to moving left and right
plane,
or moving up and down.
Yeah.
It's really weird, like how they reference this.
Because is there horizontal recoil in the way I would think? Because I don't know of any on the. I don't play the hero much, but
Yeah, is there any
I don't
I'm
feel
looking
like
at the
my
dev
camera
comics.
shakes left or right.
Let's see.
I don't know.
Well, there's that recoil thing that McCree has in his thing where you can like actually adjust the recoil versus having it automatically reset to where the crosshair
Right.
was. Let's see. Let's see. Move some projectiles closer. Previously, there's a long-standing bug that causes close-range targets to fly much further than expected. After this bug was fixed, we still wanted to keep some of the knockback burst provided, so we've increased the velocity cap to maintain some more of that functionality.
The bug is now a feature.
Yeah,
yes.
sometimes
bug
bugs
is
show
better.
you the way. It's like, well, actually, that's
show you
it's not
the
that
way.
bad.
Nope. That meme is very much dead.
Yeah, so there's no real comments on this horizontal recoil decreased slightly. I never really understood if there was a recoil that went side to side on that. So that's the only reason why I mentioned it as being more vertical, even though it said horizontal. I didn't realize there was any horizontal. Maybe there just
Me
was
either.
and it was a bug. I don't know.
Spread on the horizontal plane that moves up.
Yeah, so it was the horizontal plane moving up recoil, like that. If you're watching on the video feed, you get a lot more out of that audio than you would if you're just a podcast listener. Okay, Symmetra photon projector primary beam fire charges 20% faster. Hooray!
Boo.
Yeah.
Woo.
I mean, it'll make the hero better overall. I just personally want them to stop trying to make every hero super viable. Like, it just to me seems like a fool's errand. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if the game would probably be better if they were able to be successful and make everybody viable at the same time. But I just focus on, like, is this meta good? Is it fun? Does a hero have any place in it whatsoever? And if the answer is yes, even if that's 1 point on one map, like, I'm good. I'm covered. I don't need any more than that. Like, it's got some spot in the game, and we're going to keep adding heroes. So I don't know. But nonetheless, Symmetra does have a little bit of a special place in my heart. She's one of my favorite heroes. So in this one in particular, sure, make her good. That's fine. I'll main that on my
To be
Glen
fair,
Cove
this
account.
last change, I don't know if it's so much like a meta change, like let's bring Symmetra back. I feel like that was her rework. This is more of nobody uses this ability kind of change. Like anyone who started playing Symmetra,
And literally right click only.
yeah, and like learn that right clicks deal a shitload of damage and actually travel fast enough. Like that's all they're using, even at like shorter ranges. So I feel like this is
And it's fast.
maybe we undertoned this ability a little too much to the point where nobody's using it. Let's actually give them a reason to use it.
They give you like an actual decision to make on the hero instead of just being always do this. You know,
I feel like I would only use it on like Diva, and that was it.
Genji deflecting.
Yeah, Genji deflecting,
That's the other
something like
one.
that.
All right, we have a lot of bug fixes that we don't really have time to address, but I did do something for you, which was I didn't put them all in our show notes, so I can just read them for you guys if you want, or we can just take turns reading them if that's okay. Andres, you want to do that? Just read them one by
I need to
one.
read 'em.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think you just speed read it, man.
Okay, here we go. Doomfist bug fix preventing rising uppercut from damaging enemies. That's a pretty big bug. That has been fixed. Fix a bug that prevented Doomfist's seismic slam from dealing damage if he hit by a knockback ability for the momentum when he landed. So it's kind of a complex one. Orisa fixed a bug that prevented Orisa's Fortify from canceling the rising uppercut from Doomfist. So basically, she doesn't get moved now when she gets uppercutted if she's fortifying properly. Roadhog bug fix for Chain Hook from going on cooldown if it was interrupted before the train retracted. The bug preventing has been fixed for Chain Hook from destroying breakable objects when pulling the target back. And Whole Hog's visual effects were covering a wider area than the spread of the projectiles actually hitting. So that was a really strange one. Symmetra's bug has been that she can fixed a bug that prevented Symmetra's charge up on her primary weapon when she was using ice walls and damaging them. So now she can charge up by hitting an ice wall. Zarya had a bug that was fixed that allowed heroes to charge through Graviton Surge without being trapped. This was a massive bug fix. Reinhardt's could just literally like hit charge into the Graviton Surge and be like, that's a funny Graviton time-space warp continuum there that you have. I'm going through it by activating my rocket booster.
He just orbits around it.
That would be way better and more entertaining than just trapping him. So I would rather, please Blizzard, ship the orbiting around the sun Reinhardt. I want that skin in my mind. Okay. That's all the bug fixes, folks. That's all the PTR changes that were relevant that we decided to include, aka the ones that I typed up before the show. And that's going to do it for us. Blevins, Deathblow, thanks for coming and hanging out. We didn't meme as much as we normally did, but there was still some
I
to be
feel
had.
like we meme.
There were a few memes.
We're saving it for BlizzCon too. We
That's
need to
true.
save some because Deathblow's going to be at BlizzCon, so we can save the real memes for BlizzCon.
That's right. That's right. We
You
do
don't
have
have
a
to take
panel with
pictures with
more
plants
young
this
blood
year.
to make fun of, so it's good. We got Icy Totem and Bob to go hang out with. Make fun of when we're there. So it's gonna be fun, and we'll probably do it around pizza because I don't get good pizza here, so I'm gonna be forcing my
There's
hand.
not
Guys,
good
let's order
pizza.
I
pizza.
was
It's
gonna
like
say,
12
you
a.m.
probably won't get good pizza in LA. I wouldn't think either.
You'll
Good
get
pizza
some good
and
tacos,
pizza
though.
that exists is better.
Yeah.
Good
That's
tacos,
fair.
man. Sweet. All right, Andres, you want to talk through our new Diamond sponsors over at patreon.com/Omnic Lab for us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for supporting the show. As always, this week we got 2 new patrons, Anthony E. and Eric W. Thank you so much for joining the team. You guys are super awesome for supporting us. You make our lives a lot easier, especially attending events like BlizzCon. And we also want to thank everyone else who's supporting us at the diamond level in Patreon. Ben K, Britmas, Chris Playa, Durandal, Jan Jinkle, Lissam, Mr. Mars, Roger B, Shazir, Solo, Terry F, Top Score Solutions, and Tragic Sack, as well as everyone else who supports us on the page. Thank you so much. You guys have been supporting us for so long. I don't even know what to say. You guys have been super, super awesome. Keep it up.
Special shout outs to Shazir yet again this week. He's picking me up from the airport when I lack transportation. So that is
Nice.
more money than I would care to spend on an Uber in LA. So special props to him for being my pro Genji chauffeur, I guess you could say. I don't know.
Can we get in on that? Can we get in on that?
It is currently full and with another person who's already asked. So he has a full caravan that is not a shaggin' wagon, okay? So it's not a big one. It's just a regular human-sized car. We can't take the giants that are Blevins and Death Crow duo.
So you put us in a car and it might become a shag.
I was gonna
gonna
say,
It's going to be a clown
I feel
car.
like we got turned down at least once in New York from a cab because
We
you
did.
guys were
Because
too
you guys-
big.
and
It's like, you
then
gotta
we
get
took
out of here.
And then we took a cab that we wish we would have gotten turned down by.
Oh, gosh.
That is true.
Oh, gosh. That's life in New York for you, ladies and gents.
Also, special shout out to Terry F. I realized that I had not been getting notifications on our website for comments regarding our posts, and Terry F. left us a super nice thing just for saying his support of the show, and I missed it up until now. It's like a month late, but thank you for that. It's really really nice.
Is that famed WWE manager Terry Funk?
Terry Funk? I'd have no clue. But it just might be. And additionally, we have a few more things we can kind of like promote where people are at in the interwebs, and we're going to kick it to Blevins. Please tell us where they can find your shows. I have a couple links in the description, and then tell us where you can find you.
Find everything at highnoonpodcast.com. If you go pretty much anywhere, it's going to be High Noon Podcast, Twitter, Twitch, Patreon. We are on Spotify now, too. For High Noon Podcast. And you can find me on Twitter at @the_Blevins.
Deathblow.
You can find me. I don't. My computer's not good enough to stream, but on Twitter at HNP Deathblow. So you can find me on there, and also you can join our Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast.
Yep, that's going to do it for our guests. If you guys want to find us, omniclab.com, omniclab.com/links. You can find links to our merch, our Discord, our Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon pages there. The best way to support the show is to leave us an iTunes review, which we have not gotten for 2 weeks now. If you guys want to leave us a review there, it would help us out, and we will read it on the show. So please support us that way. And Andres, why don't you let the people know where they can find you?
If you want to find me, you can do so on Twitter at Iplaigames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And for the next week, you can find me on Anaheim, California, hanging out with everyone who's going to be at BlizzCon. Let's go, boys!
You want to find me on the Twitter, Twitterverse with the tag notrob, same tag for Instagram. If you guys like Hearthstone, you can check out a solo cast coming up this week with my co-host Grant Gould. He will be doing a solo cast on a very, very cool Death Rattle Rogue deck. And that's at velinschosen.com if you like Hearthstone. I know Blevins we had one of his decks actually featured way back when, a couple months ago, which is really cool for Mage. And you guys can check that out.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it for the show. And Deathblow, you want to sign us out?
Oh, I'm so excited to say it. Don't be a lab rat, guys. Be a scientist. See you next week, Omnics.
Bye.
I have nothing